I'd like to welcome everybody that is
Tunga
joining
sukhol
us
bunga
today.
ilit
This is
sinay
just some
kamainik
housekeeping items. Now, I would like to officially start the
taima
Anishinaabemowin National
makam
Board
ku
Indigenous Midwifery
katigia sivut
from birth.
akagugayatini
Today, I would like to
ulumi
introduce Maria Campbell, who will
ukarumabunga
be opening
Mary Campbell
the
matok
board
sila nga
today.
mat
Maria
ukane
is an
malangayok
executive
Maria
grantee
Campbell
writer.
huingul nune allati
Hi,
Evan,
sorry.
sorry, I'm just gonna jump in. Maria opened yesterday, and we're gonna welcome Laura
tunga
and
sutit
Diane
sila nga gata
both in.
matok sila nga yumi
So Laura is the new executive
Laura
director of NCIM.
nutak alaban mi angayokak
Everybody.
tamatsi hello
Desnekash
Desnekash tan ukalimama allati tutukisianginakko huititu ukalimayok tusajakangituit
So good morning, everybody. I am so
Ulaku
pleased
tamatsi
to meet you all today and see you
Hoidali
all
bunga
today.
katisiga
My name
ilichini
is Laura
tamainik
Beaded. I am so honored to introduce myself as the new
upikka
AG of
bunga
NCIM.
maane
I'm from a
khatagunageq
Stoney First Nation
tuik
located on
allau
the
bunga
shore of Lake Huron.
heran
I'm a
meutaulunga
today, a mom,
sabe
a board
kwengo yunga
member, and someone who has spent my
amma
career
pinisukataw sungu
advocating for
yunga
strength in Indigenous rights and
sangilititsiga
self-determination of
sornan
peoples.
mot allai
I'm a lawyer, so I
arnanginnik
won't tell anyone.
kamamakharnikut
But
amma
since graduating, I
tay
have
mga
completed
piyagailaw sunga
my
ilinaternik
certifications.
pinasuarsima bunga
But first and foremost, I
sibulipami
come to this role as somebody who deeply
tamaunga
believes
sim
in the
hutakarsima
power
yunga
of Indigenous midwifery because I've experienced
pitutakarsунga sangayugi akharningini arnai
2012, when I was
irnisuksiniu
starting my second
miksano
year of law school,
tungasuguniaqusi
I found out I was
tamatsi
pregnant. Now, attending law school was normal at that time.
taitsumani
It was still
natsitsunga
tough. But
khitunga
as a
sakharsunga
pregnant Indigenous woman with imposter syndrome to that, and it becomes
kha
next to
yivallalilaarsuma jungu
impossible. And I think that I
isuilluqutagunnartunik
Googled Indigenous
pinailutagunnartunik
birth Toronto, and
Toronto
somehow my Google was
misipullepaami
the first link. And I'm so grateful that
pituqataugiulaarsuma junga
that's where I
tamakkuninga
received
kamanarmut
my service, where I got to go to Sunnybrook. I had midwives who really understood my
irnisuksiinermut
experience and supported me through that, put me in
iliniappallialaortunga
school and
taikani
being pregnant and being a first-time mom.
natillungalu
And it allowed me to feel in control
amma
and teach me whatever story I
pipiksakharutigilaortaqa
felt a part of.
ilisaqaaq
And I think it started my fascination of all things birth.
taitsumani
Just the other day, someone had
khaaligummaulorsimagama
introduced me.
kisulimaani
They said they heard that I was a midwife
iliniaqummaulunga
through NCIM, and they introduced me as a midwife.
taimai
And I'm like,
mamaani
oh,
laqalunga
like I only wish I was that cool. I'm a lawyer instead.
kisiani
But
maligaleriugaluaqama
I really appreciate midwifery
kisiana khujaliyunga
and everything
kamakhataugia
that you guys do
innisuksiinermi
every day.
kanatami
And so
ullumi
my undergrad was in gender equality and social justice. And so I really have this
iliniaqiirutaqarsimayunga
thesis in theories of
silaktussarpimmi
power and inequality. But
sanginakharniumik
being in
saana
midwifery
arnaulunga
person made it all kind of come home. Midwifery touches everything:
irnisutsiina
cultural
attuineqarma
representation, rites of
kisulimaanik
passage, child protection, nationhood,
surusi
belonging, health and well-being,
sapumiyaugiaqarsutillu
infertility, parenthood
ammalumakuatu
wellness,
quvattu
and communities raising our
natsiangulluti
children.
nunalinilu
And it made me
suruserni
more than happy
piroqsaigiaqarneq
to later on be able to write on the Indian
ammalukunguniani
First Nation on the birth certificates of
allaulunga
my two younger
ila
children.
allauyugut
I was given names
qitungaqqarsungalu
of midwives that were
makkunneqsani
momming. So I think through all of
taakkuatoqasuarpattakka
this, I've seen what
tamakkuangummata
real change
tamarmi
happens when we take back our inherent rights, not just in
asitirtuqasuungugu
policy, not just in law,
nunaliitigusituarmata
but in
sanginermik
practice. And that's
amma
exactly what Indigenous midwives do every
pigirsarutigilluniu
single day.
atorsugillu
And so as
nunalimini
I step into this role, my priority is to serve
taikanilerama
the incredible midwives who are
sangineqalerama
keeping our traditions alive, fighting for recognition, providing resources, and
makitatitsigassuanginnaloqpunga
empowering Indigenous peoples.
ileqqusigiriartinna
I see my
allauluta
role as an advocate, a
takunnaqakku
support, and someone
pinasuagaqa
who will work
ima
tirelessly to ensure that you have what you need to move forward.
taqaluartailillungalu
I'm
tamakkuninga
so excited for the
kamagigialine
journey ahead.
parnaigiaqarnikut
And I know that together we can continue to build
tamatta
the work that you do
katutiluta
every day.
tamakkuninga
So to Midwedge, thank you for all that you
arsuruutiqarunnaqatta
do. I look forward to working with you,
ammak
supporting you, and learning
ullumi
from you. And
neriuppunga
let's get back
ilitsini
to all the tasks that we
pinasuqatiqareaq
have lined up today.
ullaaq
So Midwedge, everybody, and hope to see all of you.
tungasugitsi tamatsi
Thank you so much, Laura.
Hoyanamik,
We're
nakumik,
so happy to have you as
hoyaliyumariubugu
to
tamanikavit,
advance our important work.
pimmarealumme
Now, time to get started
pinisukharavit,
with our first presentation.
ilaugavillu
Wisdom
uqalimagavi
from
hoyanami,
Indigenous
nakumik,
experiences. This
amma
presentation will be
atoqsimajarniivit
hosted by
uqausiqaqataaqavit,
Martha Rogers is
ammalutaanamaguat,
mother of 7,
anaanauyoq,
born in Inuvik,
savani
almost
qitongalik
36 years
inuvimmilu
ago, with her
inuunikulluni,
father and
ata
her mother, who is of
anaanangalu ataatangalutai
currently
kaniqatullutik,
resides in Whitehorse,
nuqqalausimajoq
traditional
yukaanmi
territory
qanaajarsuni,
of the Kawanlindan First Nation
Kawanandana
and
Nation mi,
Kawan
Kawan,
also.
katimajinginnu, allai katimajinginnu,
Daughter,
ilauluni,
granddaughter, sister,
ingutalik,
auntie,
panilik,
friend, hairstylist, advocate,
ilannaqajaqarsunilluami suni
and
iqanaajaqa
to continue
ammalu tamatuminga
the rest of her life.
pinasuttamini
She's
kajusinginnaqvijijoq.
passionate about birth stories,
Aksualu ippikijangaquviakijangalu
the
irnisutiiniumiksaanu pinasuqataugiaq.
effects of traumatic birth experiences.
Ammalu atoqsimagami aqsoqunnartuni
Build the
irnisuktiinikkut.
proper holistic mind,
Tamakua
body, and spirit postpartum care.
arnaik
It can
timilimaangit
inhibit our
ippigijaugiaqarmata qitungasaqartilugit tamakkuninga kamasimajoq anaanautsianermillu atoqsimajoq
fearing the loss of our children to the system
ammalu kamageqasuungummigatta qitungaituaqatta tamakkunu miksaanu kamasimajugut
ashamed when experiencing PPD.
tamakkuningalu atutuaqatta ilaani kangusulissuungugatta
As fellow humans, we know
kisiani inutuinnaummiyugut silertuamiutitut
so that they don't have to ask for help. Often we hear
itaimangalimaakkasa
it takes a
tusartitausuunguyugut
village to support a parent.
ikajorsijaugиахарнingинник илаги нуналинни илуани
As a sacred and powerful experience it is.
таман аторсимагакку сангиюлаортоқ макитатсиарутауллунилу
Her learnings with us.
оқаусериуматуннаратаартара
You just gave the whole thing away. I didn't wrote such a
ухалимагатсаканунгуппатит
long beginning.
акуни
So I think I'll start
ухалимагатсаканунгуппатит
with my
пигиарутақассивунга ухаусериартугуматанник
well, good morning, everybody.
уллааку
I
таматси
am honored to have been
упеққаппунгамаани
chosen to do this. I was a
хатаугама
little bit shocked when I got the email saying
татамиккасакаиннаху лаорпунго
but then
харитауjakku
also not
туйортаугама
shocked at the same
алласимаюник
time because I think
хайхуяуллунга
we need to use our voices. We need
кисианини
to
пихариахарпугут
be
атохаттариаливуни пивут
involved in the shifts that need to happen.
аситлериахарматасунатуинеит икажоқутиксай нипиқангитиугиахаруннаеқарта
So I will
таймаймат
start with a
пигиарутақалангавунга
share.
таусиқаттаутинермик
So there is the title.
тайяуюуна
Was from my 5th birth.
атсингуқарсунритлу
This
нукарни
was my
ngaangayunnik
favorite births.
таанатаупиугнерпаара эрнисутиилаорсаманеқ
My mom has been to every
анаанага
birth.
та
She
эрнисутиинерму тамаани упатсимаёқ икажорсуни
loved me.
уванник
She's cut many cords.
аммалу халасингинни киписеқаттассимаёқ хитонгама уна пиугилаара
Inspiring when I was looking
уна
at
тусааллугу
quotes. And it really does
уванну
impact me because I
аттуисимаёқ
have 7 children.
савани
My
қитонгақарама
Nana, Emily, she also
анаанага
had 7 children, but she
савани
didn't have the
қитонгақалаумаёқ
honor of raising her 7 children. She
кисиани
lost them to
иммини
residential
пиқорсарунналаунгитанги
schools and
илиниариартитаулаорсимаммата
so I'm taking my job as a mother
таймайматаана пинасуарара
very
пиммариутитара
seriously, and I know she's
арсеруутигияра
with me today.
уллуми
So in my experience,
аторсимаёкку
I've
имаиссимавунга
come to recognize that every person is
илитарси
different.
илитарсивунга
And in my
тамаинник
experience, so is
икажорсимаюник
every pregnancy
аторсимаякка
and birth.
питиутигиллугит
I haven't
эрнисуксииниккут
had a single
кисиани
birth that has been the same. I have never had the same
эрнисуксиниккаатигиингит
doctor, same
туиннаулоорсимают
nurses at the births.
икажортаулоорсимаюнга ааниассиутинут ааниавимми
Place. My
микиюми
first pregnancy
нуналинни
was lost, at 16 weeks. I hadn't
16
had any care
Teitsumani ikajortaulorsimanngittunga
emergency ward after the loss.
tuavernattukuuriaqalilaussimayunga
And I was like, okay.
аммахависсартауллуни хитонгатсаранаалаттауллуни ухаутиjaulorsimayunga natsingittutit тамааниgiaqangillatilluniit таймаатага тусаумаутитсиангинерхалаортугут
My second pregnancy we
сик
started a few months
туллиани
after that loss.
қитонгасақалертиллунга
And it was stressful because
пинаса
I blamed myself
таққинааккалуартиллугит
for the loss. I had, oh, I had coffee or I had too
каафи
hot of a
торсунга
bath or,
уппалууни
all of the
ууналуартуму
different ways that we blame
ирминерама
ourselves for
увининни
everything that goes wrong.
хануилиторилаурсимажунга натсиара исуиллимат
The doctor who delivered
луутаат
her when she came
таитсуминга
was
эрнилиорсимают
crying and I was like, hey,
қитонганик
are you
хануилаурсиманги
okay? Like as I had just
хануингилати
given birth.
лалаурсимажо
Are you
эрнигиерама
Because I knew
уйу
that
окей
I'm
халлунаати
very aware of
тулангиннасуни
everybody around me and making sure that they're okay.
иппигусулаурсимажунга
Times
саққани
where I should be the
лигиялемаани
one that's
таикани
checked in on.
анниассуутини
And she said
луутааниллу
that's exactly how it should be. And
таймаат сиатага
I found out
малиппутит
then that it was her very first solo
таймаилиjaulаурсимажунга
delivery. And I'm so glad that it had gone
ховиасуттунга
as well as
таанна
it had gone.
кажиситсиалаурсимаммат амма
My third pregnancy
пингажугилертангани
was,
қитонгасақалерсунга
for reading. I had a screen positive for Down syndrome. I was only
Down
21 years
syndrome
old, so
қалаурсимажо
you get shipped out for
нутақатсара
genetic counseling and extra
таймангаат
ultrasounds and
ухаутсортаавникуут
you have no chance,
икажортаулилаурсимажунга
but you still go through the pregnancy with that stress of
кисиани таймаиккалуартиллугу
what is my life going to look
натсиинни
like?
кажусингиннариақалаорто
And you envision yourself and you do the research and
такуннангуалерсунга имминин
just like you hope that it's
нериуннеқарит
and then he was born
инуулилаурсимажо
and he was born right on his big sister's
тайматсиарани
birthday, 2 years apart.
аққаагууннулумаққууну унгаситтақиссутеқитонгаакка
every year because he crashed her party.
аққаагу тамаа паатисуук атаутсикут
I actually had to grieve my Downs baby
қиссаалауппунга таитсумани илангани
because I was so
питчутигиллугу
involved with the research and
пилеқихатаулоорсимага тамаккунинга ааннианик
that baby and welcome this
таинна
other
нутараапи
baby that
питчутигиллугу
was
асингиллу
completely himself. And my fourth that's where
ситамангани
was
натсилерсунга
pregnancy, but my third live birth
атсигилаунгимиянга пингаюата
even more complicated.
арсоруннанерсаулилаорсимагево
Umbilical cord and
тахангитигут акааунaalаорсимангиммимматиик
like it's a marker for Down syndrome as well.
илангалу Down syndrome хатсуни таана лукингулли исииллуугутеқармиссуни тимиккут
And he was fine.
хануилаунгиту кисиани
I was in the OR
инуулилаурсимажо уим туавернатуми аанниавимми аунааluалилаурси аунааluакасалаарама
well over 10 years. So I had the DNC
қалаурсимажунга
in the recovery room they realized I was still hemorrhaging.
икажортаувими
So
аанниавимми
they put me back into
таймаиммат
the
утертитаулаурсимаммижунга
and
туавернатук мо аанниавиммут OR
and then the balloons kept popping out because your body just wants to get everything out. And then they had
исуиллуувитиуалилаурсимажутайкани икажортаутсунга итеругалупиугани
24 hours of laying there.
24 ниаqa икақаниналлагаиннасти таутсунга
And then that's where
амма
the next day when I was receiving the blood transfusion,
qaupparummat
my partner
иммитортаугиақалилиорсимажунга ауммик
his parents for being abusive,
анаанаккука таатаккука
manipulative, and all of those things. So at that point,
таитсумани
23 hours after
23 ақа икақая анигоқалуартиллугит
he was making it about himself and
макита аннатсиалорсимажо.
And then let's
Amma
go on to the
kinguneagut.
next here. So my fifth was a perfect pregnancy and
Tattalle
delivery.
maqalertanga
She
natsenera
weighed
naamanaatialaorsimayoq
8 pounds.
8 pounds
4
nuqumanilimi
ounces, and
irnilaorsimagama
that's the time, like,
taitsumanilu
with my fourth live birth,
sitamarilaortangani
where I
natsilaortillunga
learned the importance of
ilinialaorpunga
who's welcome in the
pimmaqiuninginnik
birthing space.
irnisiksiinniu
And I mean,
nani
that's like a lot of babies to
tamako
have,
amisualai qitongal
to
natsiavinikka
finally learn that important
kisiani
piece, like,
iliniaqut
because my last,
ininialaortunga
where the
pimmaqialuunik
hemorrhage had happened and all of that, like, my
tamakuningaalamarlu
support team, they
aunaaloarnga
were all
atulaorama
enemies. Like,
tamako
they
akaungin
all
matatamarmitimitinut
didn't like each other, and the chaos around that, and the
taime
energy was just so off.
matuqatsiarunailao
And then the
katitualo
hemorrhage,
matatamako
like, it was just so
isuilluuruti
chaotic. And so with my
taime
fifth,
man
her name is Selah, which means to
sailame atilik
pause and reflect.
ippigusutsianarmik atilik
It was definitely like a pause. It was a reflect.
tamanna
It was like all of that
sukkailigiarutigigiaqalauttara
in one. And in
inuusernu
some ways, I regret naming her that because
ilanga
she often needs to
ilaannikut
like pause,
atingataana
and she takes
ukurasiora
forever to go anywhere.
sukkailigialiqit layumi
And
tukiqarmat
then, so
sukkayugama
then with my fifth,
taimatallimangani
my
natsilermisunga
fifth baby, I had an appendectomy, so meaning I got my
appendectomy
appendix
qalorsimayunga
via an urgent open surgery,
tuavertukut
28 weeks. I
pilattaugiaqalersunga
was told when I woke up
uqautijaulorsimayungalu taikani
if
iqqumaqama
I wasn't
tupakkama
pregnant anymore, my baby was
natsingu
medevaced and placed in a
nutaqaigun
different city.
qinutaqatsiqaqornaiquti pirtavlaurmat
I woke up and I was still pregnant,
iqqumalarsima
and
iqqumar
I
laursimayunga
basically was like, okay,
taitsumani
like how do we do this?
qanualuk
Like,
okay
and they wouldn't let me
qanuiluqunga
leave because of the appendix. What it
aniqujaunangalu
does, it will shut down your entire system
anituaqu
when it's not
visukkulangagavitimiit
unpacking. And so they're like, you can't leave until you poop.
anigunnangitutimaanna
I was like, okay, so
okay
how do I prove that I wasn't
lalilausimayunga
pooping? And I was on day 6 of not pooping.
miqaatigilaursimanangalu
And so the nurse brings me this little
taimemman aaniasiutu
bottle.
qaitilaursimayaanga pullauyaapimik
She goes, you just need to stick this up your butt
una
and hold it on
iternuuvit
for as long as you
aaqiga
can,
iligiaqartai
fluid,
lajausillunga
and lay this thing down. And here I just had open
nallangalutit
surgery, and it was,
taga
I was in pain and I could
pilattauqatarnikuutillunga
barely move, and I was supposed to
aaniatillunga
like lay there.
aulagunatsiatinnangaluni aulataqullautsunga
So then I couldn't hold it in for very long before I was waddling to the
taimailingagunnanginama
toilet.
akuni
And all I got from that was like a tiny nugget.
kisianimiki
And I brought the
yuepieluni
nurse in so excited
piijailaursimayunga
because I had just like I pooped, I could go home.
anaqata
And she
qama
said,
aqunalaqunga
that's not
isimalilaursimayunga
enough. And I said, okay.
auka taannanaamangittu
I'll try again.
lajaugillunga
So I got my friend to
utulaumit
bring me all these things. Food
qaitsitu
juice and
qaitsiuqaituunalilaursimayu
all of the
anaqutinik
things so that I could figure
anaqhujaugama
so I could go
anginersamik
home.
Of course, when
When you have a surgery, like an open surgery, you can't lift over 10 pounds. I was going home
10
to
pound
4
mi
children. One was 22 years old and still requiring me to lift her into her car seat. So when I left the hospital, I went and I got my van washed so that she could drive in with them. And then I was instructed to come back if there was any signs. So I said, okay. So at 38 weeks, I
38 weeks,
basically went into
pinasyokosi
labor,
anigokpata
and I had a support team that I wanted
ikajokti
there,
khalawsimagama
and it was going along great. I got to 3
khobesulawsin
centimeters,
ikajisitsiarsunil
and
ikajoktaunaqataitsumani
everything stopped.
kisiani
And I thought,
isulikallalawsimamiyo
I said, well, just go home. Go home.
suli
Don't
ange
have anxiety before I
qasimagalawarsunga
come because
ange
I don't wanna get sick
aqumalilawsimagama
it's just something that I just don't really want to do.
kisiani khubiagilawsimangitaqa
Going home,
ange
they said,
qamiingititauneq
we'll see you this weekend.
ange
It's okay. We'll start
qasimalertillunga
up again. You're 3
uqaatijawlawsimamiyunga
centimeters.
pinasyokosi
So I
ununguani
made it to my next
takulaaqagit
doctor's appointment, and
asitema
they checked me again.
takulawsimayungaluut
I've never
taamik
seen this before. You closed right back up.
takulawsimangilanga imaittumik
And
imaililawsimayoq
I was like, no, like I've heard my one
Ka
cousin
tu
had
saksi
it with her, and I said,
mayungale.
no, that's not even possible because I
Ka
judged
taman na
her.
tayo may ligon
Lied
nang
to
eh.
me.
Tayo
And I
may
didn't,
lutuin na lang
I didn't
masado
know.
sa
But
kanilang
I
sa
think
may
the universe was
nakalutak.
trying to show me that yes, it is possible.
O ka
Because
tuiga
then it
sutyo
goes right
galawak.
back up for 2 weeks.
O titoy na
And
laki po ti 2
my
weeks.
support
Binaswa
team
ko
that
si
I
anigok
originally
patik.
had wasn't even available. So
Amalo ikayo tao
I
gati
went into
uti atuin
labor,
na
and
gatik.
this is where
Yung
I
nisutsi
had my
lilaw si
mom,
mayunga.
and I
Ananan
hired
ipikatakalaw
a
si magalawak tunga.
photographer to come in because I don't birth generally without more than 2 people of my choice.
Yung nisusungo ka mamak
with
un
me.
ipikatakasunga.
So
Tayo may man.
with that, it was very fast.
Tamagkusip
We
kayo
got
alalaw
to
si mayuban
the
nun.
hospital at
Mo kakaknak.
5 a.m.
Ula
and
ko
he
fay
was
mi.
born by 7 a.m.
Saba mi inulak
And he
tiliko
had the cord
nutaka.
around his neck 3 times and up and around his arm, so he came out like Superman. And
Kimi kasalaw
you
si
could
mayo
feel
kala
him
sa minut.
seat belted in. That's what they called it anyways, and that he needed to be
Amma
born. So he was
inuman
born with one
inulilaw
big
si mayo.
push.
Aksaro tigil
So all
lakit
of those were
sigo
actually
law si
very
magakko.
uneventful births, and the next birth
Inulak
is
tiliko.
where it is the most it was the most traumatic.
Aksaro na nakpaulaw si mayo.
So this is the
Tayo may mat.
empty room
Tapanilaw si mayong inutulunga. Una
where my
tapatingo.
baby basically her
Nutakakalo.
breathing wasn't
Anak siya kani.
functioning properly, and as soon as she was born, they
Tayo
moved
tuin na
her to the
kani.
nursery and they called the medevac team.
So sikkubi mo
And
tao
this is,
katakalaw sa ni
it's
kisya ni
like
tuwang
a-
na
it's a
tukuti tao lilaw si
hospital.
mamiyok.
It's they have the oxygen, so they take
Anak
her
tayo
to the
tumiti
nursery
tao
where the
lunelo.
oxygen is coming out of
Kamagiyaw
the
lunelo.
walls.
Anya siutinut.
So with
Tayo may mat.
this
Namakuatulaw
child,
kakit.
her conception was the
Inuman.
result of a sexualized assault, and so many
Pikamataw ni
people have
vinilunga.
asked me,
Apikayaw katak si
why would
mayong
you
amisyonot.
keep a baby?
Sumat no
And
takapisimaviyo.
it is because
Kuno yung nataw
I
yung
truly
vinilute.
100% believe that she is meant to
Kisiya
be
ni
here.
100%
And
ubatinigya kang
I
niman.
really thought that I was alone in
Isimalaw
this,
sa
but when I
magalawak to nga.
started researching
Taman na
into
inutud siluwak to gilago.
a rabbit hole, I found that I'm not the only
Inutungi to nga
person who
sunaw
birthed
pa.
a baby
Nutakapiw
conceived in such a
matan na.
way, and
Iyak sa
that
magaya
was
kang ni.
healing in itself.
Mami
Finding
sakaya
out
ko
that
tigigaya
there's
kaktabot.
so many, and
Amiswalong mata at
assault
tutaw
can
ni bot.
happen in marriage. It can
Amma
happen
amiswalong
in,
na tusungo yugo ay
it's not
patakay
just
to akata.
a violent act
Ammalo
necessarily. It's
mako
just the
anak
act
tagayo.
against your spirit, against a part of
Ammalo
you that
akikatutilagtut.
dies.
Inu katigit siya
Like
kung
I
nagtut.
literally felt like that
Tamako amisyung
person
mata.
had died. And so I let my team know,
Kaya
the
maumatibuto ko
medical
tuwin na
team
lilaw
know,
si
this
mabak.
is what has happened.
Atok si
Knowing
majabo
that I
takon
would
na
need
lugit.
support,
Ikayok
that's where I
ikayok
dove
si na tuwin
into
nakakayalig.
therapy. And
Ukaw
I
tuktaw
saw
ni
my
kulo ikayok
counselor,
tining.
my therapist, once a
Ikayok
week,
takakama,
sometimes twice a week, and she
takuyak
really
tupatanig,
encouraged me to keep
pinaswa ko
moving
si
forward.
tamat,
And I
ataw
was
siya
struggling
sugo.
with nightmares and everything
Sinatu
that comes
majualo
along with
katalaw ka
PTSD,
mapiungit tualon o kumay
triggers,
tualon ni
like just
ikayti
kind
daw
of
lunga
going
kaya akso kong ni
into
binagno
my
tatamisi
doctor's
man ay
appointment.
binagno
And at that time,
ang
COVID
maluta ko
had just
ikay
kind of
katas
erupted.
wiluta mo ka
It was
magijaw na binig
2020,
ka 2020 milo 2021
and
22
they weren't letting you just go in and sit in the waiting room. Like you had to get
utak ka dit sito
screened in, so
nakatalaw
you
sa
go into
mga
this
iti
little
utak ka bimi
glass box. And I
kasi
remember
ani
this man coming
sikita
in
kala ko lumob
behind me
ilijaw lutit
and
ilo kasi
breathing,
uyak tumot
and his breathing had triggered me. Like I started to
ila tayo
sweat,
na
and I
sanay
started to
katiga akso
panic,
kong ni
and
nga anak
I
taga
just
ni
like
ko
the breathing
ipigililaw ako anak taga
it
yu
was
jakon
so
na ilaw mat
loud.
utak kayok tao
And I rushed in
Dua
through the door
velelok
when
sa
he
mayunga,
buzzard
ani
me
ka
in,
suwasid
and I
lunga,
just like, okay, and
uy
I made
malakama.
sure that I was safe, and I just like brought
At
my
tanak
heart rate
tumigo
down.
mangin nama,
And that's when I knew that I
tay
needed
chumane
to get off
khawjilaw sa
medication.
mayunga, ani
To
ka
help me
kaktunga,
not stop with
inulisautin
treatments
aturahartunga.
and, start being proactive about,
Ima sunali
knowing
maaqaaluni
that this is
kamakasuangillunga
traumatic. You have a
arsuqunartuni
higher chance of
tataminartuni
postpartum depression. You have a higher
atuqutaagunnammata
chance of anxiety and all the things that go along with that.
uimmanartukuunarmata
And then your
itsangunartukut
chances are higher because you're also not sleeping as
amma
often, and you're not
sinitiarnangittoq
all of those things. Like
tamakkua katittuarmata isuilluutiit
it's so much. So
amisualuit
from that
pinailutait
point, I up until about 3 weeks to
pinasuarusi pingasuut
it was therapy. It was all
inuulaalertillugu
everything. It was medication. It was
sunalimaanu
reading
atutaulausimagama
through
inuulisautinut
all of the different
asinginnullu
stories and
unikkaanullu
really gaining my strength.
sangiliigutigigiaqalau sangiliqeerutigilautaka
What if she didn't look like me? Like all of those
isumaalulalaursimamiyungat taannaapilipiaqa uvanga
and trying to
niatseqatsangippat
be so
kinaujaarpalunniit
strong and
taakua pitsutigilluguit isumakku
I was afraid that,
arsuqulilausimamiyunga
the guy would be outside the hospital waiting for me
tainna
when
silami
after giving birth, because I
utaqqiyualuusoqalersugu
had all of these different things that were
uvannikamasimajoq
just
aanniavuusilataani
irrational. And
atikiingituni isumaalugutigilersugu
and at that time we were only allowed to have
taitsumanilu
one supporter, so I hired a
atausermi
doula.
malitteqariaqaqartaluarsimagata
So you have
ikayortitinnik
your one support, which was my mom, and then because of my
ikayortiulausimaya
traumatic
anaanaga
hemorrhage with
pitsutigilluguit arsoornatukuulaunera
I needed
aunaalornikut
someone
ammalunni
there to
asingin
support
atornikut
her if it were to go wrong.
ikayorteqariaqalausimavungat anaanannik
And it was locked down. Like we were so
kisiani
locked down. Like if you came
taikani
into the room, you weren't allowed to leave
aanniavimmi
at all. So we were locked in there together.
ajorsinartualujaalaursimayu suurlu kiijaullu tailuanut anaanagalu
And it wasn't going as fast as the
sukkat
medical team was hoping,
sukkaitualuulaursimayu
because I'd gone to my appointment that day. It was 4
neriutillutataimaaq
centimeters dilated.
4 centimeters ni
Okay, I'll have some time. So I was
irnisunnniutillertillugu
I'm just gonna run somewhere
irnisutsiivi
and go home.
neernera naamasilertillugu
Go to the hospital, and she's gonna meet me there and bring my daughter,
aanniavammuariaqalilausimagama
and it's gonna be so fast.
sukattualuuneernerartauma
It was the longest
langama
labor of my life.
tamanna
It wasn't going as
inuuseqilaurtaqa
fast as they were wanting it to go. And this is where I
irnisularsimayunga
realized that
sukkaitumik
I hadn't used my voice
neriuiagualuartillugu
enough.
sukkannissakkut
The labor itself was like
irnisutsiiner
continuing on, like it was
akuni
so long, and that's when they said,
akuni
you know what,
alulaarman
let's just try some oxy.
aaksimi
And I
atoqassultitaulaarsimayunga
okay, let's do it.
asuilaangituinnalilausimayunga
I'm fairly trusting,
uppirigakkit
and open, and
matuersugu
I like to be that way.
taimaaxanuilaungi
Definitely put me in vulnerable
akaunaalautu
situations, but
uvannut
here I was,
arsoqortilunga
okay, my IVs are already in.
ammalu
And we
IVs
started it, and I got to it
atortitaulersunga
before, and I was like, I think I'm good. Like this is really
isumalilausimayunga
I'm
xanuingitungale
good. I'm like, let's just
xanuingitu
keep it
apiuyungale
here. Like if that's possible, let's keep it here. I'm
taimailinga
feeling it. I
tuinalerlanga
think my body's
ippigileqakku
really kicking in again.
timiga
So
timimma ippigilermau
and then it was really kicking in and really
naamasippaliayualutuinnaulleqama
my doula was finally like, hey,
taima
this is really
irnisugiaqale
working. Like we could probably
irnisugiaqan irnisunneqanaamatsigiaqalilausimayo
out of the way there. And
taikanilu
then
kinguniagut
she had turned
aaniasiuti
the monitor for the
qaulisalaursimajoq
so that we couldn't see the numbers going up as she increased
inulisautini
and
atortitautillunga
I was at 10,
taikani
and I'd asked her to
tianmilaursimajoq
stop it at 4.
qaulisautikut
And yes, it had increased, and it was making everything stronger, and but she
sangilerpallialilausimajugut
hadn't discussed it. She just
Lausimajoq.
was assuming. And
ammalu
when I saw that she hadn't listened to
takugakku
me and her body, like she hadn't
uvaninala
respected my
tuialausimajoq
wishes
Ammalutiminga
about it with me to say,
takusaunikut.
I think it's a good idea to keep it going.
Kasi
It
si
didn't
Chetuina lang ay
feel any
sumalilaw sa mayunga.
different than the conception. So in that moment,
Dahil
I
may
completely, I
dahil
triggered
tumani.
and I broke. And my mom
Sukulaw sa mayunga.
leaned over. And this is where it's like, we
Ukulaw
know
sa
that we
mayunga.
have such a connection.
Sunaw
Because she
pakaw
leaned
yung
over and she
maningin
said
nama
the
atua
words
katigin ni tinik.
that I needed her to say. And they were, we need her, we want her, we love
Kingo
her, and
magatigo,
you can protect her, we can
naligatigo,
protect
sa
her.
pumilangajabot.
And
Amma,
that's when
dahil sumani,
she actually came. And that's
inulilaw
where,
sa mayok.
you realize that your emotions
Kawilaw
and
sa
your
mabugot,
fears and
ipinyanikot,
everything that
kapyason
you,
ni Milo,
are going through have
at
a
ulito
really
agatigo,
big
tamakwa,
impact
at
on your physical
inilimakailulutilo, ang
self
iyong
and
may
your
uvat
ability
tinut,
to release the person who is supposed to be here. And so she's
inulat to
supposed to
katuangman.
be here, and
Upin
all
na
of
kani, inulagaya ka
my
kami nutaka.
fears and all of those things, and then she's
Tamakwa,
on me,
kapyagilaw
and I'm like
takat,
holding her,
ulugagalaw takat, ulangal
and
lugit. Kasi
I'm
situin
like,
na law
she's not really,
Kano
not the
ingitok
same
nutaka.
as the other babies, it's not the same.
Asing
And the
ititut.
nurses
At
thought that I
sige
was
yaw ng
kind of
imiyuga
rejecting
lawak.
her by trying to say, something's not right. And I
Ane
was like, no,
siuti
there's
ka
something that
magumatsiyang
isn't
ito
right.
yalaw sa
Like
mayo.
she
Tsunami
moved,
kaya tamatokit
she's
sigamik.
not latching, she's not all the things that I had experienced prior.
Atok
And I
si
know every baby is
majalimani.
different, but
Kitong
and
nulunga.
then finally it
At
was
sige
this
lang
other nurse
ngitanga.
that came over and was like, yeah, no, and she swept
Ane
her away and she
siuti.
took her to their
Nutaka
special
mitigo silumi.
space for babies. And
Nagatit siyo. Amamati
and I was
silutik.
like just kind of like left there, and it was morning, so I kind of
So
sent my
lukimat
mom and I sent
taulunga.
the doula, and I just said, guys,
Kitong
go sleep, and
nutaka mamati
I'm
tau
sure we'll be
simat.
okay.
Ukaw tutuin na lutunga
And
kano'y tiyangni.
it wasn't long after that they said,
Kingon na agad.
called
Ako
the
na yung ito.
pediatrician who
So
basically
sila
complained
kayi
about coming
luta.
in. They were on speakerphone, and they're like,
Akasangin na
but I'm
rason
still
ukalaw sa
sleeping,
mayong.
I can't wait a few hours when I'm on. And it was just like,
Utakhi
why?
gumagyan nilo.
And then they said, we're calling
Ikakanigo amisyon ito ni
and
kanay
that's
sa
when
kami.
we were medevaced. And
Kaya matuwa na tukuti tao lilaw sa mabuguta. Tanaw man.
well, she was medevaced.
Tuwa na tuku ayaw law sa mayong.
Tubes and all the different IVs and everything
Amma
like
kuningalo
that.
ay bis na
And I
atok
was
ti
just
tao
kind of
law sa
sitting
na
there
atsiging
waiting.
ito ni.
And because of my
Utak
hemorrhage, I usually keep
katilunga.
my IVs in for 24
Kasi
hours.
anito awlak sunga.
Make sure that I'm like not
Kasi anitay kanigi akalaw sa mayong.
just to be cautious about that.
Ipigo sa
But
tiyar
they said,
lumalo.
okay, well,
Kasi
you're
ukalaw sa
going
mayo.
because nobody else can go. And
Anigi akang ito ti.
okay, so
Okay lalaw tunga.
I signed some papers to like
Atilaw ti tao
transfer.
lunga le papanig.
I didn't realize at that time that they actually
Kaya
had
tsumani
discharged
utiko
me.
sulong nga nga.
And
Sino ma atilaw ko takang
I
mga
was
ama.
on a plane going to
Timiyo may
NICU,
lugar sungalo.
and I still had my IVs in,
Ay vir
and
misula atok sunga.
I was not prepared
Kasi ani lupang na
whatsoever to
si
not have
mananga.
any care.
Ika magiyaw na nga lo.
Then knew that my baby
Kaya
was being
makingon
cared for, so
niya
that was like
dahil
a weight
nanduta
off my
ka, pika magiyaw
shoulders.
lo si mayaw galo.
And then I had
Kasi ani.
I took my first postpartum shit in a public
Sibuli pa
restroom.
mitay ka ni.
And
Dako
I
ato
slept
law
on a
si
bench
mayak
for
ka.
3 days.
Itsi
And
bakatalaw si mayang ulo ni pingasyon ni. Hope me.
didn't get any pain management whatsoever.
Anya nang mulo.
Up until
Ikulaw
the
migot
fourth
sa
day.
ni. Ukaw taw si mananga.
I had to take out my own IVs because
Iminilo
they wouldn't
ay
touch me,
pire
and I
kalilaw sa
wasn't
mamiyaka.
patient. And they couldn't give
Kap
me,
at
they couldn't
nalawalang
even
mat.
track down any pads for me when I ran out of pads. So
Ala
I had to make my way to the pharmacy
nari ko tinig.
to pick
Ay
up
tsiko
my
nang
own
nanga
pain
iminig.
management and
Ang maluan niya ng mo.
pads.
Kanu
And
kamabigea
it
uqautortaunanga
wasn't until the fourth night
kisiani
where
fuagilertangani
I got to sit in the bed
sitamagilertangani
because like
unnungani
Ronald McDonald House there had a room open up.
Miktaanu
And I got to
haustaina
take a shower, and I
illuaqusaqarmat
got to
taikani
use a public
irmigunalilaursamajunga
And I
kikkutuinarnu
joined pain
upagaungittumik
management. And then
aaneanermullu
I was like, okay,
kamagitsiaria
this is good. I
uqautortausimagama
feel like a person
ookeilalaursamajunga
again. It took me 3 days to get to the pharmacy.
pingasuni ulluni
The first day
taakua
when I tried to go, I waited
atulaurtaqaparnanaanikkut
outside the NICU doors.
silami
And everything
qattarsungalu
was so big and so
qallunaanunangani
bright.
kisulimaqalu
And I
angijualu
actually just
yaalilaursimajut
melted into the
alla
floor and just
uppuangit
started crying.
qiatluinnalilaursimajunga
It was just
taikani
so big, and
angijualu
I was in so much
mataannanunna
pain. And I
aaneajualulungalu
hadn't eaten yet. There was no food
ammalunerilaunanga
available for me.
atuinnagualu
And I
atuinnaqalaungimmaniqnik
remember like going back to
iqqaamayunga
the desk, and I just said, I can't
silamuakainaqama
do it. And she was
taime
like, let me call the
kajusigunnangittunga
social
tappuuna
worker. So the social
isumalilaursimajunga
worker brought me into the room,
taimeimma
her room, and said,
inuusileqaligu
Marta,
kamagililaursmajaanga
I can lose my job for this, but
ammalu
she pulled out a
iqqanayaami
tiny little
asiusigunartunga
personal size
isumalilaursmajunga
bottle of Advil, and she gave me her personal stash of Advil, and
qaitilaursimaju
that's how I made it the
aaneaqikutinik
next day
uvannut
to the pharmacy, which was 2
taima
blocks away.
kinguniagut iilaqartaapimmualilaursmajugut
Grateful that she
huilalilaursmajaqa
told people about all this stuff,
ikayusuungummat
because
inunning
that's where I kept falling through the
kikkutuinarning
cracks was policy.
ima isuillukatattilunga
Like,
ikayulauma
it was
maligai
just so
pissutigillugin
horrendous to
taini
feel
ikayussitialuk
completely obsolete and invalidated and left
ikayu
alone.
inutuugaluarnikkut
I kept kind of
inutuunikkuallaat
asking, like, what's next? What is it? What
isumanarmat
is
qanurli
next? And I went on to
kajusituinalaursimajunga
we got discharged. She was good to go.
taim
And we went
anigunnarsilutalu
to the
aaneavimmit
airport, and she was 6 days old. And
qattimmittavimmuarsuta
I went to check in for my flight home.
timmiyumu
And I
ikigialaqama
made it there. I
tikittualuvunga
made it to the airport on time,
tikitsaqatalausimavunga
ready to go home.
mittavittinaq
And the check-in clerk goes, well, how old is your baby? And I said 6 days.
apiqijausilausimamiyunga ikileqama qatsininguna aqqaagulu iqitungait
What do you mean?
qatsinitaqqilik
We were discharged from the
summaat
NICU 2 hours ago. Like,
irniqataqqautillunga
like, you need a doctor's note? Like,
luutaamu kamagiyaqqaariaqanginavik
you're a
lajausillunga
4-week-old before you don't need a note.
mikiluarmataanna
She was like, no, I
pinasuaqassituinnani
can't
amisiungituni
until you get
inuumman
that note. So I walked over to
taima
these,
upalilausimamiyunga
everybody was
asianut
walking back and forth and back and forth.
utertatuinnalaqattaq timmiyukkuvimmi
I sat there in the middle of all of those
itsivaalaursimajunga
people,
tamakkuaqaalui immuani
crying, devastated. But I'd
qiayunga
gotten there, and
taqammut
I was alone with this brand new
inutuutsaqalua
person, and
nutaqakitsaqalua
I did get that doctor's note.
teikkua
I
luutta
contacted the
uqausingi
social
pisimajaqaluakka
worker, and she
ammalu
that exact day
uqalimalaursamajunga
I contacted the social
inuusilqalimut
worker. She didn't answer,
kinguneagut
so then I had to contact the
kiulaursimangimmimat
Ronald House, the person
rana
there who'd
mittaanakun
been
uqaalagi
the
san
social worker
uqaalagi
telling me that I
aqalilausimamiyunga titaqarlungalu
well, we're good. I
allalungalu
got on the plane, and I was
taima
on
qangatas
there, and
timmiyumu ikitsaqatang
I'm sitting
niaqqulaqama
there, and I started talking to the person next to me.
uqallimavi
It turned out that she
qalausimajunga
was actually a NICU nurse herself
nikkiunumik
during when she worked. She was retired, and she's going out to Whitehorse to
pinasuqattattuvinneq
visit her
teikkununga
grandbaby. And
nuqqasimalertoq
I feel like the universe does help us.
teitsumani
It
taanna
does help us
ikajortoqilaursamajaqa
and guide us, and even with that
ikajulausimama
that
uqausikkut
experience of the medevac and all of that,
atorsimajakkullu
like I feel like I was given this
isumalilaursamajunga
opportunity to hear
piviksaqartitaunernik
losing my baby,
kappianartunik
whom 3
ila
weeks prior I
kappiagiarnik
didn't know if I could
nutaqaituinnaqeqarnermut
bond with. And all of a
ikajortaulaursamajunga
sudden, there was just
uqaututaunikkut
this connection that we formed through fear
teikun
and through
teikuni
love, because
pituqatigiitsialaursamajugu
I needed her.
nallinneqarmat
And
amma kinguumannaqakku
that was like such a beautiful
taana
process.
piusummaqiulaortoq atulaortagut
So
Taimaimmat
she's definitely meant to be
taina angna
100%.
ikajortummaqialuulaorsumayu uvannut
So my
100%
next baby, who was born
taina
last
kingullapaa
year, she's just over a
aqaani
year old now.
inuulilaorsumayu 6 neqqaaguqalertoq
Was definitely my redemptive birth experience, and I really
tainali
think it's profound to
qanuilaungitoq
have such an
natsineqataatsuminga
experience where you are supported and you're heard and
ikajorsisaulaorsimagama
you're using your voice and
ammani
you're,
piqarunnartitautsunga
you know what you need.
ammalu
And
qaujimalaorsimayunga
it's very
sunani
healing
kinguumagalangammangaarma
to have an experience after the
atorsimayaput
last experience. And so many people will
qaujimagutigitllersuguit
stop at the last experience and they'll say,
atorsimayaput
no, I can't handle that again.
akaunarningittuugaluat
Like, just, no, it's
atuutaqalerpammata
so much. And so this last
ikajorsimayummaqit
experience, like 100% was
100%
so different.
mu
And
atsigisaunginerpaulaortutaanna
also
natsineqa
complicated in the same sense.
tisiani
At the
arsorunalormiyuugaloo
18-week scan, they found
iittiini
that she had a developmental
pinasuaqusaqalertilugu
cord. And that's where the first few inches of
akaungiliutiqalaormayuq
are not protecting the
jellis
vessels and arteries. So it's a
muneqartaujut
big cord.
nakkuangil ila
So okay, and
nukinginnut
I dived into
akaungiliuqutaqalaormayuq
find all the worst things that can happen. And
akaunginnerpaanik
at 30
aturunnaqquursunni
weeks, they said come in for another
30
scan, and they scanned again.
pinasuaqusiin aniqorsimalertillugit
Became obsolete. It became not important because they found
isuillerutiingit
growth inside her chest.
qaujisauloorsimammiyut
And
piroqtul
I was then sent down to Vancouver.
taimaima
for
Vancouver maullertitaulalaorsimammiyunga qausartaugertillugu nutaqaksara amma angeqarama quvas mana
summoned back down for an MRI because
MRI kunu mo atoqeaqalilaorsimammiyunga atiliortaugearqarsunga
which was
MRI kun mut
interesting in itself because
taana
it was at NC
ippinalaorsimayoq
Children's Hospital where the MRI happened, and
MRI aniavimi atoqtausuut
5 weeks pregnant
35 weeks
with
ni
all of the packing that they put
natillertillunga
around you to
pinasuaqusserni
make you comfortable, to be able to stay still
tapuunaareaqatil
and like
tung
pause breathing and all the things
aka
with your eyes.
tungasutitaugeaqarmata aanearnangittumilu atorlutik
So they actually kept like and then I get
teikuani
stuck,
pilialuulaorsumayu
and then they bring me out and
uvanni
they rearrange
kamagutingit
the packing, and then they try again, and it would be about 3 or 4
uuttuqarsuti
times before
uvanni
they got it right. And I was like,
tisamavissutiluunni
I'll just be
teikuninga
comfortable,
atorsutik
just get it done.
qaujissaqutini kisianini
And
pilialuulaorsumayu
that's when they said,
taitsumani
yeah, we actually need to
angilaorsumayunga
have her down here. And
maanigialit
that's where that was my very first experience.
taana
of
sipullerpautillugu
having to go
atulaorsumajaqa
home from the
ange
MRI and get
ariaqalilaorsumammiyunga
ready
taitani
to
atiliortaulaorsunga
plan to be
aaniavimmi
down there for a month.
taqqilimaami
And
taikanilaorsunga
so when you're rearranging your entire
tamakko
life, like 6
parnanaartaulituarmata
kids, like all of the
iksimagut
things
isimaki
that
qasiutigialuvusoqusiit
have a large family,
ilaqaqawe
making
angi
sure everybody's
amisuuti
good,
amisuuni
and
piluartumik
nobody's going to take all of my kids, so it's like placing them in
kinatuinnamutuni
different places where they feel the most
caanginnakkinnutaqalimaakka
comfortable, and
tungasugialiit
and arranging for some
amma
of them with the most
parnanaarsimatsiarlugit
anxiety to participate and come
qimalangajaput
down. And
tamangapigiarluta
I really, like yesterday when they were talking about
ipatsa
having to travel
uqausiqartillugit
and be away,
ingeqaqqatarniumiksaanu
having to come home to
ange
chaos.
areqarniulumiksaanu
It was chaos when I
tamanna
arrived home.
atulaortaqa aksuul
It was
akaunaalorsimangemman
like the attachment things, like when attachments are broken,
ungaqijaqarsunilluusunatuinnarnuun angi qaminunnalinni
and you're like, I don't know what to do right now.
allaanalunaqissuuq
So with her birth,
tainna
I got back down,
inuulilortillugu
they did
nutaqa
another MRI, the same thing.
atilluurtaukkanneqeqalilorsimammiyunga aaniavimmi
The same, like, okay.
okay
And they said,
latuinnalilorsimayunga
yes, like we want to monitor how
qawisaqeqaqatta
see
taimailijaulluta
it in 18-week scan.
18 weeks aniqorpata takulaaqivavut
Again and again.
taimanga taana
And then
atortsutiku
it wasn't so they thought it was like a cyst that had basically developed from within 5
Pirortoqartugisaulorsimamma
being
nutaqaq
developed, and that was the most common
angilivalliayumik
explanation for this.
kisiani
But they wanted to make sure it was
tukisititautialausimangituma
born that she could
tamatumamiksaanut
breathe, and that was the
anerteqetsiarmakko
possibility of needing a
kisiani
surgery to get past that airway.
pilattaugiaqatuinnaqaaligoq
So she then was
taimataananutaqa
it was a planned start to
parnakutaulilaussamajoq
finish. Everything was
pigiarninganik
so
isulillugu
planned, like, and I had the NICU team and the ENT team.
ikajortaqalaussimayunga
Like,
taikani
right on call, like they were there if the NICU team couldn't
ikajorunartuni
manage.
tuamenas
And I had
oqalavigilaguit
nurses, like it was a high risk unit
aaniasuitillumakoa
at BC Women's.
tuavernartukkuvimmituut
They said to me,
aaniavimmi
you
oqalaussamayu
can
uvannu
have
imaak
as many people as you want.
ikajortaqarunarputit
And I
amisuunigumaguvit
thought,
imailijaulaussimayunga
have as many people as I want. So
isumalilaussimayunga
my mom
amisu
was there,
amissualarni
my sister was there,
nuta
and
nuqaqalu
my
taikani
oldest
suni
daughter
angayuga
was there. And
ammala
she
angayuksappaaqutiga
actually, when she walked into the room,
isermatik
everybody was like, "Oh, you're here.
oh you are
You know,
here
where do you want to
manipi
sit?" And my oldest daughter
nanichivarumavit
goes, "In the splash zone." So the whole entire,
qitpanigu oqalilaussimayu ikani imarmi
everybody just started laughing.
sunauperni
And
bitsami
it was just like that
isutuinalilaussimayugu taitsumani
experience that we need to
tamanna
have, that,
atuleqattigu
you know, we're
atuqeeqattigu
together and
katutsiqatigiitsu
we're here,
takatingalluta
and this is
tamaani
happening, and
atullaqilauattigu
the entire day,
ullulimaaq
you know, with the full-on induction and the oxytocin, which was a completely different experience going from
atsigilaungitanga
start to
atulaortaqa
finish. I mean, even the day before,
pigiarninganit issuanut
we were on the
nutaqai
sea bus and we
inuutillugit
were going to North Vancouver and we were doing things
Vancouver
and
martitaularsimaqama
then just the thought of like, I'm
teikanilaursutanga
gonna have a baby tomorrow. Like
pisukataliqama
I'd never had planned
nutaqartaalaalartungalaqauppat
time where I knew
isumalilaursamaayunga
that tomorrow I'm
qaujamalilaursamayunga
going to have a
qauppat
baby.
ernilaartunga
They've always been spontaneous, and it was so surreal in that
tamanna
and
sunaup
very
atullaqilangayuq
healing to have
mamisarniullunilu
such like the coordination like that happened
qanu
and the nurse that was
aaqiumatitauninga
coordinating all the different
kasusitsialaummat
teams and getting back to me,
tamakkualu
and it wasn't
pinasuqatigit
me having to do that. So
aaqiumaqatigiitsiarsutik
like it's having that coordination and
taimaimmat
advocates
aaqiumaqatigiinne
to say,
nga
hey, we got your
ikajortiuyut
back. I know that
atsigiingittu
that's a lot of people
pimmaqiuvaq
to coordinate with, but here, this is just one person that you can communicate with that
taana
has all of
surlu
the rest laid
uuttuutigilugu
out for
atausi
you.
uqalimavigijunnalaortaqa
Then after I'd had
amma
her,
kinguneagut ernigiiqama
because the ward is
pittutigillugu
so big, like the
aaniavik
women's hospital for birth, and
ammalu
it was
arnani
huge. So I
taikaniittoqaqatluni
they
ernissuttunik
allowed me to stay for 5 days,
ulluni
and
tallimani
they
taikaniigumnarti
basically like
taulaortunga
they
aaniavimmi
have porters that have
ernissuksiivimmi
shuttled me back and forth to my room to the NICU and back and
utertartitauginnaujarsungallu
forth, because the NICU is
iksivautakut
very tiring.
illuaqisernut
Like it is
kisiani
so beep, like all the
akaunaqalaungimmiyut
beeping and
isumakkut
all of it's so overwhelming with
tatamigutiinniu
sound,
qattalaumata
hustle and
isumakkut
bustle, and it's just like you need to get out of there. So I spent more time, and
anigumatuinalilaursamaga
then
taikkangan
on day 4 they referred me to my first
tallemaqalertangani
midwife
ullungmi
experience, and that was where
taitsumani
I was like, wow. Like, so she met me first in the NICU for the first visit,
kataqatiqalaursamaayunga
wondering, is this gonna be okay
ikajurtimik
for you? Do you really want us to check in on
qanuilangangilatiilalluni
you? And I said, yes, I very much
qarisaqattalangavagiilajauluni
so. I need something. And she was the one that said, like, let's
tainna
send a
ikajorti
request for blood work. And I said, okay. So they came in and they did
aungertauqujilaursamaaju
my blood work,
qawisarta
and then they found
qutimik
my iron levels, of
amma
course, really
qaujilaursamaaju
low.
taikane auga
And
naamangittoq
so the doctor come in and said, Marta, your iron's
lutau
pretty low, so
qautilaursamajunga
here's a prescription for
uqautilaursamajanga
pills,
out
and knowing that I don't handle
akaunangimmat
the pills very well, and
ammalu
being
iijakatsiarunnanginnavit
neurodivergent, like I'm ADHD and I'm
ADHD mi naamannaalluaqavit
like fairly certain that I am on the spectrum as well.
Tapani kama
I
tamani
just said I don't know if
ukatuin na lilaw
actually
sa
that's
mayunga
I have to go home to 6 kids and I
ang
need to be
akakama
over.
6
So
no
if
takam
there
na
is a possibility, can I please just
kisiani
do an IV? And they said yes, absolutely.
ay vi mi ato kaya kalaw
And
sa
they
magama
did that. Like I asked
dahil
them
ma
and they
tamakuningal
funded
ma
it.
atulaw tunga
Sorry, this is Robin. I'm just wondering if we can wind down so we have a little bit of time for questions.
Okay, I
Thank
will.
you.
no kakay na laki
Okay,
apakayaw lang
so
agabi
I'm just gonna go quickly through this album. It was my number 5, and he because I thought it was a beautiful reflection as I was preparing for this presentation.
Pang nagpalelo nga ikaw maatot
So
sa mayanig.
nature does not hurry yet everything is
Tua
accomplished.
person ng
And I
ipok
think that
tamang
that
milo
is
ato
a
reali
huge
ato sud
thing to think about when it comes
taman na
to
ay sumagiyakat
birth,
tabot
really, because it is so natural to be giving birth.
ang nisungnik
Um,
inusiw pan
I
adlaw
love the
ngitok ato
laughing
reali
gas. But my
gas
mom,
mod
you know, by my side again.
anak terus titaw lunet
And
kanwing ngilok taka
this was
ana
like a
nagapakatigilaw
contraction,
ko
and then you can see my scar on my abdomen from
ang
when I
malunan ni
had
ay
the
man
surgery.
natistik
Basically,
kangan
they
ama
point to where it hurts the most, and that's where they cut me open to take out my
tay man
appendix.
na appendix taw luni piyaw law si magamataba
And then that's
ubinin
that
ni tako
aftershock
yung
look
napay
that I think most
nuksaktaw
people
ni
get.
kuwa
And this was the
tay man
first
na
time
lo
I
atulaw
actually had a
ni
male nurse.
ang
He was so
utimik
attentive.
itwa saya
And
kalaw ka
my
makamit
favorite
piyak
nurse
ni
out of all
uwan
of
ni
the nurses who have helped me.
itwa saya ni piwila ka si maya ka
So when I put these two together, you know, my
Taka
mom's hand was there on my head. And then I
taba
realized
na
in the
nama
other photo that
aga
my
nga
hand then was on my
ama aga
baby.
katako sa ulo ni ay pangani aga putaba na naman lo ubangalo
And then that photo where, you know, I made this.
tan
It
sa nalaw
reminded me
taka
of that little otter that's holding on to their baby in that meme that's like, I made this, and it's like, I'm so proud.
yung duting wa
So
cartoon ulo ni takudluwo ang nigami
in
o
my birth
kakto o
experience
nasanaya
is
ka
the most
tayo o kaunak po nga o
you know,
nasanaw
where I
ka
felt the most supported, the most
ikayok
validated, the most
tao
seen
si
and
maluak po
heard
nga
was
tusak
when
tao siya nagpangulo
I
nga
had the
lo
best outcomes for coming
tusaya
home
tiya ka nga
and
ma ang
being able to
ikakunat tiya
manage
ka
the
nga ma
household and being able to
ang
manage all of those
ikanilo
things. I
iman
mean,
na
in
ang
some ways I
umatiyon na
dreamed
sugi
of
piyak
being
side
able to come home and just
ilan
be,
ni ang
but
ikakumakatalaw nga ma
you know, like I read about in the Chinese culture they have
Chinese
like 6
ligo
weeks where they don't
makwa
even
6
leave their
week
room
mata
for a month.
iglo
They
sa
don't even
minni
shower.
takatama
Like they
ani
just
bangit
in their
wasak
culture they
pangito
have
ubin
these
niya
ways
pangito
of doing and being, and
inyusing
all of
at
the
tao
other kids are
adyungin
cared
nami
for, and it was just like,
nutakang
wow,
ili
that's really
asingin
cool.
ni
But I really
kamangiyaw
believe
luni
that in Indigenous culture there's also
tisanin
that
nunakakakto
care and that
yuguli
support, and I really
ikayok
feel
te
like we
kawata
do need to be more
ino
connected with
katitini
people. We need to know people. We need to like
ino katiba ko
just
imayara
yesterday's
kakatigo
presentations were so
udlumi o
inspiring
kausari
that these things are
libiyak
actually
ka
happening.
akswalo
Like I'm so
udlumi ato katigo
grateful
umayun
that people like
kuya
that it's
lilaki po nga
shifting in ways it might not shift
ama ang
fast enough
nisuksin
for
yung
me, or
asidyak
hasn't
padliaman
shifted fast enough for me,
tau tutaw
but
ni
it
nga
has
ako si
shifted,
padlialo ni uban nisukay
and it
tugalo
will
ako
shift fast enough for
pilkari
my
yato
daughters. Like I
karigag
have
ko
4 daughters and
kasi ani
I'm
paninuli
so
pang
grateful that
nagpadliayuan
I
yung man
have the support and everything
ikayak te kaulo
that we
tinaman
need,
yung mga te panika
and the knowledge
naripo nga
and the
kawai
know-how,
maya
and I
reakak
think
tangilo ilisak
you know, like
taurutik
safety is a big thing, and it's a
atang
holistic
naktumitay
safety,
liman na sunig
and
inutia
using our
aswang
voices and speaking
nutakag sa
up,
kaulo ni
and
ni
it's
pikaklo
so
talo
so
tisayaw
valuable
ni
and so
agata
important. And when we're
Taman na
silent
pimakaluman.
and we don't speak, we actually
Nilingit
become
ka nga ta.
dangerous.
Kapianak singasungu
We
at
are
atang
not safe
naktuminga
if we do
lisungu
not
yugot.
stand up for
Watinod,
what's right. We need
sa
to
patingin ko ta,
continue the
Ugasang
hard
ito
work. And
aloler
I'm so
luta,
grateful for
man na
every
atang
single one of
naktumi
you
tunakata,
who is doing the work.
kaya nang
And
iti mga karlagon
I
naktutalo,
really feel like we need to keep pushing because
man na kaya naktumi na
yesterday I was
swaldo ni piya kaya
so like,
kakata.
wow, this is amazing. Like
Ipak
just
sa
the
aksalo kuya
stories, and I
sulaga
just was like
maunikat, tamakwa
overwhelmed
tu
with
sa
all of
luwil,
these emotions that
tamakwa ipigil luwil,
this is
aksalo
happening,
tatatutilaga
and
ma.
we need it to continue to happen because
Taman
it
na
is
ato'y
so
nakakaman.
sacred. We are so
Atok
important
sumagati ko pimakelo gata ang
and
isuksini
worthy
luta
of
nuta
safety.
karlo nunarjamon isok palayon pimakelo matayla
And I think that'll be my conclusion.
tabaleno kautiga
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
aksualo tu sang nagtok
I thank you so much for your
kaya namingwit
beautiful
aksualo
sharing of stories. I think I can
unika
speak for everyone
parning
and say we're truly honored to be able to hear your
aksualo
stories. Thank
iling
you
ni
so
tu
much.
sagata umatang ni
Your
ngaktung niya
bravery and
atok
resilience
simayang
and
ni
strength really
aksuoti
comes
binang
through.
ning
I
nidlialo
feel really
tid
honored to hear
iping
that.
naktok
Thank you for that.
aksualo
We
upi
do
po nga
have a
uwanno
question in the chat.
nidyagarin
I can
suri
just
yuming
read it
aksukong
out.
naksimayuni
So
inosong
Maria
ni
asks, through what
Maria.
we did learn about faith and trust, and how does it support
Hanok
your
li
decisions today in the work
upi
that
kosong
you
na
do?
ino katinig upi yakang na
Can you repeat?
identisimali.
I can repeat.
Okay.
So through all that you did learn about faith
Kaya
and
ma
trust, and how does
ino
it
katini
support your
upi kaya
decisions
kalar
today
lotit
in the work that you do?
pilga kaya ni pilga katikati ako naksidoti atang nang itumi katigilugo kanok li ilit simabin.
Well, I don't. I think it's just like a matter of, yeah. I don't really know the answer to that.
Hoy mang latang itaka kiugas na.
It is like it's very important.
Siya ni
I
pimakero.
think I would go with just love.
Naglinang
Just love.
atugaling.
And that's where faith and trust and all of those things are all
Naglina
under that
kakota
umbrella of
pero
love.
yun na
And
katigo pila katigi yabon ino katigi
a lot
tiyagon
of
na
people say like the
katigo
opposite of love is hate, but it really
naglineo
isn't. It's
igloa
fear.
kimin no
And
kimin nito
so
kapiasong na
we just need to
naglina
love.
kakayahak
And
pagot
there's been
kapiasong
times
na kakayahang
where
ito
I was, I went on this, I read this book, and then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like go around telling people I love them.
nagligiyan naglit
So I
o
did.
kakatang
I
niya
said,
dagama
like all my clients, because I did hair for a lot of years, and
ami
so
sukad
then
lang
at the
ni
end of their
inulray
appointments, I was like,
sumagama
oh, I love you.
o
Have a good
kalakatigi
day.
kanika
And they
ngatigo
were just like,
o kautikata
wait,
sumagakit
and
nagligiyan
that's
kin ulo
where we need to
katyakan
come back around to love and to not
naglingnom mo
romanticize
utira
love in a way.
kata
It's more like, I wish you well. Like love is just
inutya ko
wanting
galok
people to
pagid
be well. And like
kano ngitya
illness
lote
becomes
anyang
wellness
nek
when we change the I to we.
pidlo ni
And that's
isumaw
really what it
asiding
comes
apat
down to.
ko biyan
We
samon anak sa kon
we
nakata
need to speak.
ismatin ni
We need to
awla
use our
tayo
voices.
nakata isumabot
We need to
ni pibudlo
roar.
ato kaya kaktabo
Absolutely, I completely agree.
ang katigi
Thank you
bagay
so much for
at
sharing.
sualo ko
that
ya di
story.
bagay
We
Thank
can
you.
move on to our next presentation. Thank you again, Marta.
at
Thank you.
Marta ko yan nami
So
ang
our next
maasya no ramita
presentation, it will be Anishinaabemowin,
and
Jewish
Anishinaabemowin
which will be presented to us by Gina Mount.
Gina Mount o
Gina
kalang
is
niya
a
to
member of the Bolasoli
Baway sa way miutak First Nation min
clan. Gina has been a midwife for 14
Gina
years.
Ukionu
is
14 no
passionate
ang
about
suksiwi
reclaiming
lakto.
Indigenous language and
No
culture
nakakater ka
because
o kasingin ni
this is who we
pikusingin ni
are,
lupin
which
makilialo.
Gina knows is essential to well-being. Gina
Tana
considers themselves an
eminigli
OG,
ismagimat
as Gina is now beginning this journey and has so much to learn.
Gina
Gina is
ang
working with
suksinon mo
the
pilira sige kami. Pilira katakapok. Taiman na atilimi.
clients, sorry, Gina, and communities to learn how to weave
Nulailo.
languages practices
O
into
kausomnig
midwifery
takosomnig
at
ang suksinongnig.
we see
Teka na ilin niya palya si Mayot.
so that our future babies will have a good understanding of who they
Lutaka
are
sabot
and how they're
kidaw ng
connected
min na
and
kawi
belong
man
as
luti
well.
pero sa niya mata.
Language is
Yung niya
medicine.
kasi malagot
Gina
tigo
will
o
share
kausap
her journey
in
as
inulsaw tiyong man
language learner and learn about the
idun niya
spirit of
kalelo tigo o
language
kausi to
that is
kakpot
harm-reducing
akawok
and protective against suicide.
umumayaw tiyang lo
Gina
nilo
will include a little
asu
bit
tayo
about
lugo
colonization,
umatid lugo
language blocks,
China o kausa ka kang niya magaw makunis
and how we
nimak daw
learn
sa manakpid lugo
like when we
kano
are born
suka si magyanga
vital to our identity.
tinaw ni tino nilo ino ni tino iman na suka si mangman.
Okay, can people hear me?
Yep, we're good.
Great. Bonjour, gekina awia gechimsing indunji, Gina Indigenous, genu dodem, makwa ozid indigo, nin getinawewin, Mount Carmel Clinic, Nagi Danoki, Madasa, Asha Nij, Daso Baboon, Nungam, ni gichi minwendam danoki wasa gijik nananda wayigamik. Hello everyone, my name is Gina and I'm a midwife. Thanks for the introduction. I know as Indigenous folks, we really love to position ourselves in our introduction. So I tried to do that in Anishinaabemowin or Ojibwe. But I also like to put that aside in that I know a lot of folks have some trauma when it comes to talking about where they come from. And so I also like to position myself where I am now. And so where I came from, I didn't get to grow up with my language or my culture. But now I'm so lucky to have my Meday community and family, my Sundance community and family, and also my language community and family, my work family, the cats. So this is sort of where I am at right now. I started my journey in 2022, and I decided at that time that I wanted to reconnect. I wanted to reclaim. I wanted to get to the roots of where I'm from and who I am. And there had been many obstacles in my way to do that. But around 2022, some of those obstacles shifted and I was able to take a year off and I entered into Red River College in Winnipeg, Manitoba. For their year-long program. And so it was during COVID, so there's not a lot of pictures, but I also was really lucky to be accepted into an immersion camp. And that became another one of my families.
Taikani katimalgata Tavani katimaluta imanna piluluya katalogata Ilisaya kasimavanga amisonik o kausilriniglo Oyagiyakatamang mitya
just for the sake of time, I know you can read the names. I'm gonna
Takwa taigo nakasu unikalo ajange taka
to blab on. I put this picture here of a river.
Tanna cook ajingwanguyok ilibaka
Any Indigenous language.
Kanima nunakakaututukay o kausingin kanima ilinyak pita. Ku solo sibawata aunga inga kayo iman na ritau tungwa ko tigigakko. Imakadlaksiutinan
So I think a lot
umatitiyo,
of people, I'm probably preaching to the
iqaititiyo,
choir, will understand that metaphor. Language is a gift to us from the
uqausaq
Creator.
uvattinnutuniyasimangman sanayittinnit
I really loved listening to
aaqiumattutigiyunnartavut inuqatigigluta
language. That's the first time I heard it referred to as harm reduction.
aaqiumattutigillaqigunnarlutigulu uqausaq atuttiarlugu aaqiumanarmun atorsimayattinnut sivumullu taututtattinnut taa aaqiumattutigiyunnattiarmiyavun sivunik samitautunngaaruviit pequsinnittinnut tuqaangayu uqarsittinnitapaavut atuinnarpanngitavut piveqainnarpanginnatta taimanna uqaussermi ilittivallialluta qallunaatituut ilinniarsimayuatjuujugut tigumiartigilaortatta uqaussinganik namminerput asiussimalerluni uvvaluni asiuligaalerluni amma governmentku tigumiarneqarsimayut inuusittinnitigumiartittingipput uqaussittinniglu nammineqartittingipput kinaugavik Spanish-ngugama Spanish uqarpunga German-ngugama German tu uqallagunnarpunga kisiani uqauserpulliinnunaqqartutuulluta Anishinaabemowin uqallakkuma kinaunernunalunaaqutigiunnarivain Anishinaabemowinga mohawk-nguvunga soulu kinaunernu nalunaaquti inuuqatittinnu imanna katijjutigiyunnaqattigu kinaunerput imminerpaktut pillugit inuuserminni nakattiyut kaliisi titeqqangit nunalillu ajigiingittuq kanequartaulluti pidjutinginni kaneertuu kanuima nunaliit unurnersani imminerpaqaqattarpa ukuamikinnersani taakkuali katimayiit unikkaalortut kinaunerminniglitasuinissuloormata inuuserminnik tigumiaqassuklutik paliisikkut aanniartuleriniin oqaussi ilinniarviin peqqusilleritviillumakua saqqitaujut tamaaniutillugit 50% uqallagunnarpata oqaustoqarmingni immineertut ununginnersaavut makkuktut attarnartumi inuusserni atuluaqattangipput kinaunerminni qavimaneqaraming uqausseq qavimalluguuq uqausseq ikayullarippoq attarnanngittumiilluni una kinaunittinnuut kiusiniartuoq Leroy Little Bear qavimanermut qavimayi unikkaarniarman taamaamalik taumman qanuuq isimagiyanga taanna oqaussingata pileriaringata ilainnanga takussauniarpoq ati pingua ati saqqilaurli qaqiyaw Leroy Little Bear atinguanga saqqilaurli
I represent Canoe, Canada 150 project to create
150 project mi pileriuvunga siatlursarmimungauyumut oqauserni tukisiumattiaqqoonga qanu pileriunnarpita ikayullataarunnaqayartuni ukiutallimaat sivuneksattinni nuneqaqqaartunu unakiunnerpa najartara imanna Blackfoot uqaqrunnartin nasuallagi uqausinginning
And the TRC
TRC
saw the
taanna
picture. That's the
ismagiyunnaarnik
reason why in the
pillugu
TRC report,
TRC
there was
miunikkaani
mention after mention about the
uqarsimangmata
language.
atausiungillutik
If you are going to be
uqauserpimmaqiuninga
able to change ways of thinking, you've got to be
kinaunittinni
able to change
assiterniaqutta
ways of thought. And the best way to
ismanerput
change these thought
uqauserpimmaqiuninga
processes is to think in a
uumatjutituaqanittinnuun
different language.
ismailiqiaqaqattigu
How awesome is that? I love it.
taan aksualu piuillaqa
Languages hold so much, and so much they're so
uqauserput
powerful that even in
aksualu
English it transcends sometimes. When you say the word cousin,
cousin
doesn't matter
laqaangatta
what language you speak, but if you're talking with Indigenous folks, it takes on a whole new meaning.
nunaqaqqaartuni
And
uqallaqatiqaruvi
again, I'm
ajigin
speaking
kiva
more for Anishinaabemowin, the language that I've been learning. There's a whole worldview in there.
taamattao
The
uqauseq
animate
ilunniarpallugu
nouns and inanimate
innuuseq
nouns. And so there's no
nalunaikkannammagu makua uumayut uumangitullu nalunaiarsimallugit
if in your life you never heard people being heard to as
innuusserni
or she, how different
Inuit
would you view
taipajavangipata
gender culture?
angutiarna
And so this is how we know that lots of Indigenous
qauyimayugut
had very
nunaqaqqaartu
different
tulqait
fluidity to gender. And
arnaunarmaangutaunarma isumuloarpalaungitut
connection. So very English is very different when we look at
qalluna uqausingale ajigingimmagu angutiarna
resources, but in
makua
many Indigenous languages, we see them
ajigingimmata
as our relatives.
nunaqaqqaartuqa uqausinginnile illavut taituinnaqattigu angutauninga arnauninga isumaginagu
Languages will have a lot to do
uqauserpulli
addressing climate change and
silamo asiterpalliayimma uqauseqarniarmiyut
and you can just see this example
qauyimayatuqarpullu
words and how
uqausiillumakua atortauvalertut silamiksaanun
she was like, I hate it when people call me a stupid Indian, and I'm like, look at this
uyaginngitaqa allaullungaguutu kiqanginnama
can tell that Indigenous people were scientists.
qauyima iaqarputinnunaqaqqaartutuqait qauyimayyaluulaortut silatullutik tukiqangittuulaungitut uqausertamatja uumatjutigiyausumallariнгман
And so for Anishinaabemowin, often
Anishinaabemowin
presented as being the spirit of our language.
uqauserput uumayoq uumatjutigiyavut
Address a myth. Lots of people say, "Oh, only babies could do that." no, they're built for it. And
iinutaqaulluni ilittiunnarpugut
babies, they start hearing around 20 weeks gestation.
20 weeks ni tusaaleqattarput oqausserni uummatingata tigliktutusaayanga silatiminniluunatiangulluti tusaavun
It really is, they don't even have teeth, so they have to learn
kiutiqangittuugaluat
form our words, right? So they do take a long time, and I think we take that for granted.
ilitti saqaituungittut
But they make all sorts of mistakes, and that's probably the
tammakkulukkaluarluti tukisinnarsiunnarсисуугуммата
self-identity isn't
kinaunermingningli
because
исумаалунгиннамин
take it when they make mistakes and you laugh at them, whereas adults
таммақалуақуттик сугурутигиниангита илиттиттутиги туиннақамиу пилериккиакканни туиннарлуни униартоқ
3 years is usually when someone can understand
укиунниппингасуни укиуқалеруни тигингиттаттинне қауйималлисуугаангатта питтинниглу қауйималерлута тайманна каппиасуннинингаамане пивиқангинне кангусунне уқаусермиа уқааллагасугиерса тамматаа тулуртаутигивактавут уқаустерми илиттинасуарлута уқауситтиннин нангминиттиннин уқаусерпут сунаутитаулаунгиппата тоқутаунасуклути асуутитаунасунникууппата пиммариунгиннинганик налунеарлиусимавугут таманна аситериақалларилертоқ микиттумеққаапигиарлута пиммариунинга пеқортингаарпаллиалугу сорорсаутигилаортанга қимарлугу
one of my teachers, Patricia Ningwans-Nadeau, you can see her there on the top.
Ningwans
She
Nadeau
was
taba
probably the first person who has addressed what we call the block. So
okas
that's
kasamayo
and she
block.
said to me, you know, she's been teaching for over 40 years. And she
Okay,
said, in
for
my
the
classrooms, I find that
ilisailerta
non-Indigenous students excel. And I think it's because they don't have this
nuna
block.
kakaktutokai
So
iliti
speakers are
shoot
not able to get the and to get the sounds out, to get the
nuna
words out. They
kakaktutokai
might understand
nilya
all
yunanginnersausu
the
okasitokarnermingning
words out.
ani
A lot of that
yunangitto
has to do with colonization. So when you think about
tigu
us, we're learning
nimertausimanertik pillugu
taken away from us, and that
matusimadjutigiyanga
causes so many different triggers, frustrations, anger.
ningannermon
When you're
nimertausimanermon sukkuleangavalaarnermon eqqaajjutigillugu ningaurtiksa
kind of it can also be
amma
barrier if you get
tulortautaujunarpo
and that's all you do is address this, which can
tamanna akaunginninga imanna
I think we have to create
oqaaseqatuinnarlugu kisi attarnangittumaarluta
and we have the support
ikayurteqautialerluta Inuktitut ilitpallianasoqlugu atausiungilluta piyunnartugut ilisaiunnartanimaati ilisaiujutigivarlugit qimaanasuarlugit ukio atausa ilinniarpunga pilersuarusi atausa muqarunnarsinasuarlunga ilinniarpunga qanorlippimmariunerpaanguva oqausermi ilittinasuarluni naalaqattarit oqallaktuning oqausinga atorlugunilleriaqattaqin kiugiaqqattaqin pillimmarsainnaqik oqauserning ilippalliajarning ingernikkummumernikkunneqiliornikku angunnasungnikku mersornikku sapangalerinernikkut pingmaarnikku tuksiarnikku angajoqqaangunnikkut ilagiunnikkut imanna oqauseq aturunnaqattigu Spanish to oqallainaqutta Anishinaabemowin oqaasiutillugut tusarlugu upagumagutta pitaqangitta aanniavingmi ernitittigiaqarutta angerrami erniyunnangipata aanniaviu illuqursiaati angeqannguttiarlugu tunganartittiarlugu nunautuarmi katimayerjuan nunaqaqqaartutoqait oqaarsinginning ilitarsisimangmata ukiutayan gilertanganing covid kuularsimagatta taqiyauti amisiquluulermata naalautinillu naalaqattaqama oqausermuut tuqaartunik naalaqlugit imanna ilittinnermata I want to give a big shout out to my friend Claire, who told me she traded in Netflix and learned the language. Migo ilniaqattaqama qami oqauserminik ilniaqutini
I also taught English as a second language, but it takes about
ilisaissimagama qallunaanu oqauseqarut qasu lerlutik piursayunik
playing games.
pinguarutikkullu ilinniaqutigiunnaqattigu oqauseq
Making sticky notes, putting them all over
titerapallialugilluut qaamayimayavut oqausiit ilippadeayavut
So I already said before, it's really hard, but here
pitarutuyugalua kisiani illugala imanna nipiisimayuinnaumma titeqqaning
I feel we're so lucky to be in this intergenerational position.
Maanna
Right there when we do our
ineqattiaqatta oqauserput uummartittunnartava utertittunnarlutigu
you speak English?
qallunaajaqunnaravit oqaustaqarni ilitiunnaqivuti
Again, I don't know them, but I have all the admiration for them. I think Emmeline Beaucamp and Monty
Actualo Pikkui Vakka, Calgary, Emily.
I think they fell in love in a language class. So that's another thing
Katituvini
which is fun.
uqaussermi
But
ilinniaqasuarlutik
they
katinniku
they became a couple and decided to move in together. And
nuliartaarilaurtu
let's make this home no English. So
igluminni
they stuck to that. They're
qallunoyangittut
going to have babies, and hopefully by the time we have the
nunaqaqqaartutuqait
babies,
uqaussinnanginni atuqtut
and that'll be their first language.
taan
And they did that,
uqausserniartangan
and of course, you know how babies
taimannailiulaortu
happen. They happen always. You don't
nutaqqai
always plan for them, right? So they came before they were fluent. So there they
taima
were learning all together the language.
atautikkulli ilinniaqqalliammata nutarariin angayoqqaariin
As midwives, we can inspire people to
taima
learn their
ernissussiiulutittaa uqausser atoqtauluni uqaussistoqarput uummartigiartugu suquseqartaartunun saqqinnasugiaqqaleraattigu uqausserni atorluti nillerunnerniaqqoravit
and just trying to get everyone engaged and involved.
taima ilauqulluit uqaussermik ilinniarumayarninnerunayaqattaruviqqai 92% qallunaatitu ilinniarni pingillugu
Marta said,
tunnartanni ilittiluguti inuusernu atuqtumi
grace with yourself. It's hard.
illinnillu ajornaqaluartillugu satarnaqattaruartillugu ilinniaqasuinnarlutit
By the end of this year, I'm going to be fluent. And
taima ukiupianikpat qalluna uqaustoqattu uqallittiaqunnaarnersaulernunga piyumaartunga
I'll give that tip to you if you're going to enter into a school program. Talk to
ilinniaqaartu niaquvit
sometimes they look great when they're like, this is what the program will give you. But
imanna ilinniaquti ukuninga ilittibiginiartatit imailioruluartillugit ilaani taimannainginna lugittigusivvinnaavangimmimataa ilinniqavinnasualerluti quviagilugulu ilinniaqasunniit uqaussermiit piyunnarpoti Winnipegmi uqausqamatu uqausit taqqi tisaman pianikaangata tisaman qatiqatigiissuukka uqausitsinning atorluta uqausiit ilinniaqunnaruvigit ati ilinniarlugu unna ilintumayaqa imanna allai uqausingani imaittummi ilittiirtuarnartummarialu qallunauyanngittiammaqilluni nutaqqan ilinniarniarmata qallunaatilu uqausserni illuusilataani tammartuugaluat kangussuktingillugin taimanna piareaqarattigu miigwich oyannami
Awesome presentation there, Gina. Thank you for sharing.
patimatittiaraqequyannami
Learning my language of Cree
uqaussera
myself.
Cree ilniaqqalliagakku
I have what is called
ilaanni
tongues in my mouth, so I have like my Cree
uqallainnareassa
my English tongue
qallunauyarnera Cree tullu uqallagassunnera ilaanni nalunarsisuumma angeqatigillarippagi kuyannami aksualu
I think we are now going to be taking a 10-minute break.
Kayamminiminnukkangalauppillarniaqatta
Stretch, check out the resources for the watch party page. We are going to continue on with our presentation will be the Beaded Vulva project. The presentation will be done by Brittany Johnson is a member of
Johnson
as is
professor Ilisayimmarik silattusapimmi
University in anthropology.
University mi ittanisapinilernermu ilisarto ammalu apinguatiunermu ammalu arnai qanuingitiareaqarningi tamiksaanut
work she undertakes as both a researcher and a vulva
Hawis sa sungod no nilo. Asingin nilo pinasusok.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Hi, tamatsi tusaya tsakonga.
Awesome.
Tusaksaw
Okay,
nga.
so I'm really excited to be here today.
Khoyele bunga
To
maniyak
talk a little
ulume.
bit about
Ukhaw
this
sa kay
project,
galala nga yung nga
and
pinasakta
to
mamichanot.
just share what I have been doing with you all.
Atok si majan
I
nilo ni
think
kala nga
it's
yung nga.
pretty great work. So I'm just going to share my
Jay
screen
mali.
here. Make sure that I'm doing this right.
Tamma ko manginama.
This
Tusago
one,
tikot.
share.
Akiya kala nga ko.
Okay, it's making me open my system settings to make sure that I'm allowed to share with you. So just one second
Matwinga
here.
tsaka so lang nga bunga. Ukhaw sa karlo nga. Ukhaw si tsanik. Daw siya kataw tiga sa wakata.
Now I'm going to try again, and hopefully this
Uto
works.
ka
So
lang
I did
milanga
send
ukwapiyong
in,
nga matatusaw
a
mautit.
copy, so we'll just hope that this works. Okay, it looks
Utakay
like
kay
it's
nakatsi.
working. I'm just going to
Kay ma.
go into presenter view.
Nakilaw ka
Hopefully that
milago.
works. Are you all seeing my notes, or are you just seeing the slides?
Takon na pisi adla si majunik.
You're seeing my notes as well. Okay, let's
Adla
try this
tangni
again.
takon na pisi.
I'll just play from current slide. All right.
All right.
So, what I'm going to talk to you about is the beaded
Ukhaw sa
vulva
kala nga bunga
project.
ilit sinot.
This image that you see here
Tana takon na sa si atsingwa
is
sa
a
pangay.
series of the beaded
Ikutit.
vulvas that were created with a group of
Sana jaw si
historical
majut.
residents that I taught this project
Ili
to.
sa law si
I'll talk a
majanot.
little bit more about
Ukhaw sa kala
that
pila lang at sungalo.
particular experience when
Atok si majanik.
get a little bit further into the presentation.
Tako ukhaw sa nila nga jod. Unikani.
Yes, your
Oh,
camera's
never
on
mind.
and the slides are.
Beads, kinship,
Okay,
and
thank you.
beaded
Sorry,
value.
it popped up for me as a notification saying my camera was
Tako
on.
na
So
lunay ko
let's just
tay.
hope that we don't have
How
any
you
more
go to
issues.
mataumanot.
So how I'm going to
Kaya
go
ma.
is first I want to just introduce myself a little bit more. So my name
Kina
is
mga
Gina
maukala nga
Mount.
yung nga.
I'm
Nay
Beaded
naglago.
Nation.
Alaw
I
bunga.
am a mom of 3.
Im ananaw tsunga.
I had the wonderful experience of being
Atu
able to
tiyak
work
si
with a
mabunga.
midwife
Pinasok
during
at
prenatal
tiyak
pregnancy.
irniso
And
chijinik.
it was really life-changing, and I really
Uba nga.
appreciate the stories that
Inusing
were
ano.
shared
Asitsaw
earlier
tao si
this
mama.
morning.
Piyunak samot.
They really resonated with me,
Aso,
and
akso,
so just
ikajulaw mga
thank you
tay ko.
both for what you shared, and
Kaya ko sa
the
kalanga
work
jakatam.
that you were
Taga.
doing as well. So a
Diamond
little
mat.
bit of background. I'm going to talk a little bit
Kinaw mga ama ko lang nga yung
why
unika
I
kay na lang nga
love
yung
beads so
sumudlo
much.
tamanay
And
mga
I
ama.
think that beads can be great teachers
Ang masumod.
and are
Sa pangalagan ng ilisa ko
in
titsyabaw
all of the
mangat.
work that we do.
Atati kasuri gati gusto na limano pinaswasta tinut.
A little bit more about
Unika kay na lang at sungalunay tumi unikamik.
beads as kin. And then from there,
At
I'm going to talk a little
tulunga
bit
sa
more about the
panganglik.
beaded vulva project specifically. So just so you
Atok
know
kasuktaw
what
badliya
to
jumilo at
expect
tulunga.
as we go forward.
Kasi si badliya luta.
All right, so
Diamond mat.
telling you a little bit about beadwork
Ukaw
in
sa
the
kapila lang nga
Inuktitut
bunga.
language, which is a language that I grew up
Ukaw
speaking,
may
didn't speak it for a
atulaw
long
ka ma.
time, and then have been on the
Asean
journey
ni
of relearning
kisa na ako
the
niyalo
language
ilinya
as an
kalota
adult.
ka.
But the
Pero
word for
sa
beads
malaksunga. Tanali
in
ukaw sa
Anishinaabemowin is
sa
mikitsa.
pangalaganak.
And what's really interesting about that word,
Kamanak
and
rotigi
what
nga
you may
tatsuma.
know that
Kaya
your
marin
language
yakatuin
is
na
both
kakarabi
an
kinatuin namik.
animate or inanimate.
Sa
And
pangalaga
this
yung
word
mau
happens to
jumik.
be an animate
Upalun
word.
ukwatak katay
And
may
what I think
gutit.
is really neat about
Kaya
this
may
is that it
pinakatigi
is,
lawak tanga.
you can think, does it become animate because you wear it on your body?
Ato
Or is it
katakatigo
animate because
timitini.
it is something that you have fun
Kamanak
and
tut
with? And I
ipinaktut.
think it's a little bit of both. I'll tell you a little bit more
Tamay
about that
ato
as
ko
we
tao
go.
nakadutik.
But when I'm thinking about beads,
Isimalito
don't think of
akama.
them as just an object, as
Tamak
just
ko
something that we use for
ipigisiw ka.
art or
At
something that we
subot.
use for
Sanang ako sibot. Sa
decorating
pangalagan
clothing,
ko.
for example.
Ano
I've seen
ka
fashion
tinulo. Ili
institutions
ako
that we
kasokit
have a
sutigo sa
relationship
pangay.
with. that we can
Taimemmat
learn from, that we can hear, that we
atayummaruugu
can teach
sapangarnut
from.
sapangalernermut
And in that way, I
ilisainermullu
see that the book isn't just
sapangalernermik
about theory. And when I'm talking about theory, I'm not just talking
unikkaarutausuungummiyu
about reading a
tamakkoa
book
allanut
and
suurlu
getting all of this
unikkaanik
knowledge
suurlu
from.
uqalimarnikkuut
What I'm talking about is that
atuagarnik
you learn
uqalimaagarnik
how to be in the world and how to be a good relative through beads. And
taakkualu
I share a story about
atusuorigattigu
that in just a moment.
ilagiinnerkuut
I have a quote on here.
tukiqartitautilugit
You're going to see I'm going to have
uqausiusimajumik
from various
uqalangagama
authors throughout here.
uuminga
And there's
ima
Métis scholar Sherry Farrell Rousseau. She
allangajut
talks about how beadwork,
uqausiqaqattasamajok
is mastered
sapangalerniu miksaanut ilisaiullunilu unikkaatiutsunilu
to see the stories that they hold within them.
unikkaa
So you see I have an image on the right
unikkaanikut
here of some beadwork.
ukuatappa
This is work that
sapangaleavinit
I did on a pair of
sanasimajualuit
gauntlets, a couple years back.
Aqagut
within this, I was incorporating
amisuungittunaasimalortutaakuninga sanajuqalartilugu ilisartaulauramale
that came from historical beadwork, like kind of old-style beadwork.
sapangaleriyitoqaalunnit
Finished product.
ilisartitausimajunga unatappa piaqersimajoq pigiarninganit
I have the 5
unataka
rows on here.
nunaranguaq
I have a little bud
atigiingittunillu iliuqqailiusimalluni nunaranguanik
these things kind of in a lot of
tamakkua
historical beadwork. And there are
piusitoqartitu
artists
sapangaliurusiit
traditional styles of beading
allai
to do
peqqusingatigut
with them, to
pitoqai
teach about the
taakkua
body or to teach about
ilisaigutausuungummiyu
other
timiumiksaanut
important things,
ammalu
show you some
asinginnik
pictures of those
pimmariujunnik allanun
but what's important to note here is that
ammaluttau pimmariuju uneqqaumagiaqartavut pigiarninganit isuanut anaanatsiaqa uqauserinaaqakku pinasuppalaummat sapangalangeerleriulluni
many years ago.
amisuni aqqaaguni uvanni ilisaissimajoq
New version of some of the same kind of
ilangit
flowers that I was seeing on those
takunnas
silks.
takuksaujuit sapangait nunaqanguat
And so I want to tell you the story now.
un
This was the first
uqautigumalaqpasi
flower
unikkaamik
that I had
una
ever beaded.
sapanganguaq
I'm going to tell you the story of
sanalaurtaqa
this piece of beadwork now.
unikkaarinangajaqa
So when I'm thinking about beadwork
isumeqalituaqama
and how we have this
qanutaakkua
relationality or
mikiyuutiapi
kinship,
kamagigiaqalituarmata sapangait
to this
utertasuunguvunga
work that I ever
isumakkuut
did. So
sanasimajannik
it's not the first thing I ever beaded.
taana
But it is the first
sivullipaarasimanngitaqa
type of
sapanga
beadwork that I'd ever
leris
done that I knew
sanasimajaqa
would be a gift for someone. So I'll tell
tuniqutitsaujoq
you the story about that.
unikkaarujumajaqa
I was sitting up one night and
itsivalorsimagama unnukut angeqami
I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I knew I
sugumatsungakiaq
wanted something.
sapangaleriyamallungakiaq
I started to
taitsumani
flower. Now I'd never beaded
nunaqanguami sapangaliulilaursimajunga qaujimagalaananga qanu sapangalerigiaq
instinct. And as I was beading, I was
sapangaliqlersunga
teachings that I had received
iqqaumaqatalorpunga ilisartaunavinernik
from other beadwork artists
asinginnit sapangalerijinit
about how when you were beading, you
ammaqano
good
sapangaleriluni
so you want to
piuyuni sanaguminasuungummat uppaluni ingiusini tusaaluni
to every piece
sunalimallu tukiqarlutik
and that if you
ila
start to feel
sapangalimaat
frustrated or you start to feel anger, overwhelmed, you should put your
uppaluni
beads down and you
tamakkuanu
have to
itsigutaagunnamijuningaumanarmi uppaluni quviasunnermik aliannimik
I started to
taimaimmat
I was singing all of these
ingikatatsunga taakkuninga sapangalerlilaursimajunga
singing all these other things.
ingiinarsunga
As I was beading, I felt
ingilerama
presence
sapangaleratsunga
and it was like there was this presence that was telling me
uqautituyaalaursimajunga taikani qanuittuni amianginni tigulagiaqarmangaarma
the areas where the beads look like they're popping up because I was like, oh no.
taitsumani takuvalliatuinalilaursimajunga nittalarituni tarsani
And I before I knew it, I had finished the
tamakkuninga qaujimalaurnanga
finished the leaves.
Pilarilaursimagalaortunganu naqanguanik pirutsianguanik
To stretch and then I finished the rest
iqaisagalalorsunga uteqpigiqattasugit
what I was going to do with it and who
ammaluqanuilamulangarmangaarma isimatsasiuqattasunga
I had to back it with
qaujimalaortunga noqqangakainneriaqalaortunga
I cut out the strip I needed and I started
nakaterigiirama ilitterigiirama
never done edging before.
tamakkuninga Kinga sinangin ni kamalausimananga.
Working on this edging
Tama
of
kuninga
the
kamalausimananga khalamelo.
finished with
Pijagal
some of the
suwillo.
green here.
Unatakonnatase. Pijagal
Speck
nikura.
of moose hide and
Ammalo
put it
ilalagayutitsugu
onto
atsunamik.
the little loop that I created.
Umayu
And as I was looking
khasivininganik.
at it, I thought, well, I could look at it for all its little
Kime
imperfections, but I
uhatas
actually felt
takatako.
so proud of what
Pijagal
I had done,
rakama
and I knew this was
upigusuli
like this
lausimayunga
lesson that I
imminik.
needed to pass on to someone. And I
Amma
knew
isumalaksunga
that I needed to
tunigaligo
put this
unatana
together.
sanajaka.
And
Anana
so
tiano
I went over to her
lausimajaga.
house.
Illungano
And
agama.
when I pulled it out and I showed
Natsasugutana.
it to her, she let out this like
Tunitsugulo.
this gasp, and she told me that this is
Ukauti
the exact same
lausimajanga.
style of beadwork that my mom
Ah,
used to do.
anana
And I never
pi
had the opportunity
sa
to do this.
pangalaki ko singani
She said even the
maliputit.
same colors, right
Ala
down to the color was
tako
exactly
singat
what her mom
takuninga
used to do.
China
And I
taksalini.
knew in that moment that the
Dai
presence
kani
that I
khawi
felt with her
lausimajunga.
being that night
Tamanin
was
ningani
my
khanin
grandma.
ningani anana ma.
And my grandma took that piece of
Anana
beadwork and she hung it
tiaga.
up on her wall
Ma
in
ta
her
na
kitchen.
tuni yaga nibinga
And she
lausimajanga
said that it
akin
made
namot.
her feel safe, that she could
Amma
feel the
ukasune
prayers
atanang
and the
itumin
love that I put
galaksune.
into it. And so she said whenever she was
Asago
feeling
tigi
worried
simagako.
or anything, that she would actually
Isimalu
bend down and she
unay
would
na
drop it into
rasunelo.
her hands and feel the
Tigo
beads
me
on her
asuneo.
hands, and it would bring her
Dako
a lot of
at
peace.
sa pikasugit sa pangay.
And so it was something that really stuck with me.
Tai tuna tai
And
ni
then a
kamalo
few
hatta
years
so
later,
rapuigo ko
on
nangitaka.
my 30th birthday,
30 na ka
I got
gotagama.
called at 2
Ukhala
a.m.
bi
from
ulausuma
my
miyunga.
mom, and she told me that
Ukhasunili
my grandma
uvanno. Anana
was being taken to
tiago.
the hospital,
Ane bi
and that she
muataumat.
had
Tai kana
aneurysms
khawi lausuma
and
yunga.
that they could go at any time.
Tokotu na kaya
And
hanga
so
to
I
na
started
tiak.
driving down to where
Tau
she
bunga
lived.
inga
So as I'm
kalasunga
driving
na
down the
ko
highway,
tikut.
I
Ako
hit
kama.
the corner. I started going around this curve in the road that was
Inga
what we call
atsunga
the
sango
curve.
padliagama.
Because years ago she had been doing construction work as a flag person and had
Takulausuma miyunga
actually
sana
suffered an
jinik.
accident
Say
somewhat
matimitigo
environmental.
mertut.
And it made it so she wasn't
Khawi
able to
majagalu
work
taken ni
anymore in
lausune.
that same capacity, and she had to change kind of what she was doing for work.
Asitira khalausuma
And so we always
miyuta
called that our
pinasugar
curve
minik.
because
Taina
we would go around that
ukhausaga.
curve because that's the story of what happened there. So as I was going around this curve, I look up in the sky and this big
Takugaya
star is
makilamik.
falling down across the way.
Nubujalu
And at the same
takulugit.
time, my
Tai
radio's
chimani
on
China.
and this
Nalau
song
tisuli
is annoying
nalau
me.
di ikisimalugo.
And I knew in that moment she
Silame
was
khawji
really
lausuma bunga iminik.
and within 10 seconds, my phone
10
rang
second
again.
ane
And she
sivanak
told me,
tohata
it's been
sila
awesome.
anananik.
Try to get here as fast as you can. Be safe.
Khair
Thankfully, I was able
chawti
to
ge
get
khajaw laksunga.
to talk with her
Tuhoto
and
inna
to
kaya
speak with her.
khalamago
And
khangatu inna
I
ukhalama
had
pa
always had such a close
khajaw lunga.
relationship with her. She was truly like my
Taina
second mom. Like she
anana inna
half
kalawako
raised me in
anana
all the hard
tiaga.
ways, and
Ikajulong
I was able
mauvanik.
to have those moments with her before she passed.
Pikatigi yun nalawako tukhulaw
The next
tinago.
day, I was
Amma kingunego
so
hau
glad.
paumat.
I went to her house and I curled up
Illungano
in the
alaw
bed
sama
just to
yunga.
smell her and
Illingano
talk to
aksunga.
her.
Nay magayaktok
And I
sugu
looked
illu
up on
ako
the
singa.
wall and I noticed that the beadwork was gone.
Khawila
And I
takulaw
was
sama
like,
yunga.
where is it? Like,
Sa
what happened?
panganginik.
Like,
Sa
'cause I knew she
pangalianginik.
always had that there. And so I asked my mom about it, I asked my auntie
Anana
about it,
gapikilaw sama jagada kwa miksanut.
and we started to we needed to look in her wallet to get the items we needed for
Khimak uga khalaw tang
preparations,
sima jugu
for
sunan trahang
funeral
mga
and
tinaw
for
yakuvinga.
filing all the death certificate and such.
Ammalu tukuningano
That's where
nalunay
it was.
tutay titaka sama
This
yusakigya
beadwork was
hasugit.
there in her purse.
Ammalu mako sa
Now, I
pangalaya
don't know for
biningit.
sure,
Katitaka
but my
khalaw
heart
sama
tells
jagol.
me that
Khawji malaking
she
itong
knew
makisan.
something
Ukhawdi jaw
because
sa
that bell
makhodi
was on
gama.
the wall and she took it with her.
Takusakhajaw lunga
So
akin
I
namot.
could feel
Anna
her prayers in
attorlugo.
there and feel that love. And I actually still
Ipinarnayama nalinaw.
have today.
Ulung
I take it
isulita
with
ko
me everywhere.
apisimayaka.
I have it
Atoy
here
na
in
takalutan na
Beaded
sa
as well.
pangalayabinok.
And it has her writing on it.
Alla
Dated
si
her
mayuit.
February 27th,
Tunuani.
2016.
February 27,
And so
16 la si mayok.
I'm very grateful that I still have
Khuyali
it.
yung makiubunga
And when I
tan na
touch it, I think of how
sana
many
jabini
times
nga
this
sa
man
pangapisimagako.
this same piece of beadwork, how many times she was connected to
Am
it.
siwata chuni
And
sa
it
panganing
makes
ato
me feel
katalaw
close to
mat.
her, and it reminds me
Tunga
of all of
suguti
the
mining
beautiful
nan minni minyo
memories
am malupi yung
and times
makelo
that
ni
we
sana
had.
sungod lo ni.
So that's
Dahil may man.
I wanted to tell you this story
Uqawsiqa
because I feel that it
gumaqqaujaqatana
helps
unikaa
explain what I mean
suliyoq
about beadwork being so
sapangalereneq
and
piqutilereneq
important is
pimmaqiummat
through this story. So that's why I
tappuuna
wanted to share that
unikaakut
with you.
qujalibunga
So,
unikaaqunaqama
to go ahead a little
ilitsinut
bit, this is a quote from Shailene Jobin, and
Shailene Jobin
it's talking
mingaartu
about the
unna
importance of stories. I'll just
uqausiqartoq
read it out here. She
pimmaqiuninginni
says,
unikkaat
oral histories and storytelling are two
unikaasiungugami
ways to resist
unikaanik
colonial attempts to erase Indigenous history and
nunaqaqqaasimayut
territory. When
saujaugassuarna
used to tell more
viningane
Indigenous
qallunaat
stories,
aulugusinganut
telling Indigenous stories affirms
unikkaarsuniliu
Indigenous identity,
nunaqaqqaasimayu
Indigenous
unikkaanginnik
inequalities, ways of
аммалу
being in the world,
мамиатсиманиу
complex
миксаанут
roles of women in
арнайлу
stories,
сулеқисариақарнингинник
roles,
нунамиссилартуами
and so the story I
асингинниллу
told
таакку
is an
охосеқажакка
important story to be
илитсинут
told. The
пиммариутитауйут
stories that we heard earlier
униккаариармата
about the experiences that the mothers
атортауссимают
had with birth and with navigating
ернисутсииниккут
these colonial systems that
тамакку
affected the
ахаллунаану
way that we're allowed to
ернисутсиинеқ
live on this
аулатаулаунгитиллугусули
land. They're important stories to tell.
тамаккунинга
And we need to use this
пиммариалуйуни
so that we can do
униккаасақарма
our
тамаккуамиксаанут
place as Indigenous women
нунақаққаассимаюниингаартуна
within our
арнанит
communities and within
нуналиннит
governance in those communities.
аулатсиниуммат
So
кисулимааник
from there, I'll
таймаиммат
tell you a little bit
уқаусерима
more
уқарумажунга
about sexual and reproductive justice, and then a little bit more about the
sexual
Beaded
and
project.
reproductive
So
mixaanut
this all kind of happened
annasapangait
over many years, and it's not
sunalimaano
where I
taakku
thought I would
atormiyut
ever end up or what I would be doing with my life.
nalugat
From a
laurama
young age,
kaniluqtut
I
saammangaarma
wanted to
inuussammi
be either
tamakkuninga
an OBGYN
saqqitaqipallaapunga
or a midwife. But then I thought it was gonna be
saasimayunga
full-time. So
ernissutsiinermut
here I am, I'm still in school, I kind of
tappa
wasn't even out of
isuli
school by now.
ilisarpunga iliniavimipunga
What ended up happening is I started to
kisiani
become
imailaorqunga
very much so obsessed with the idea of creating beaded teachings
kamagummaulilausimagama
in order to teach
sapangalarenermik
people about their bodies
ilisaygutarlu
in a way
matsuurlu
that
timiumiksaanu
was accessible and
sunai
that they could
atuinnaumangata
touch so that they could have that
atorluta
experience of running their hands over things that they
atorsimayattinnilu
could learn. So
unikkaanikkut
this first piece here,
atornikkut
this is meant to
sanajausimayunik
represent mammary glands.
unna
But even more than that, it is
nalunaikkutaujaqtor
showing what happens when you have a clogged
akinnamitto
duct and what potentially could lead to mastitis. And so I started looking, I was getting
taakkua
working a lot with those
qimeqqugialilausimayakka
teardrop-shaped beads,
pinassuanginnaqama
and I couldn't stop drawing them
nuqqarunnairilausimagama
as bead
titaqaujaqsunga
glands, and I knew I
allanguarsunga
had to create it. So I
qaujimalilausimajunga
have, this is just one
pisitiujunga
example of how I started with bead
sunangualerunnartunga
anatomy, because I thought, you know, when you go into a
isumalausimagama
doctor's office and you see
luuttaat
the
allavingani
images, which are usually of body
takoqattasimagama
pieces up on the
timiu
wall,
miksaanu
it's very, very
titaqaujaqsimajulimaanik
important that you can
unalisapangaarsanasimajo
have some connection
akinnamittusaq
to what you're learning. And so I started to bead
taimaimmat
things like this. So
sapangaleqivalialilausimajunga
and then I started
akinnamittusanik
thinking about how this was
sivulipaami
a way that I could further
sumalausimagaluartunga
talk about the ways that some
qanuiluuriakkanila
of the bigger
rumanerni
fears that we deal
unikkaariaq
with, the ways our bodies have been silenced and made a cultural taboo for ourselves as a group of women.
nunaqaqqaassimayuit
And so I started to
ilangagu
think that how can I make this
uqausiqajausimammatta tammartaullutik
bring these teachings that I've been given, or things that I
ilisartaugu
understand
tipinikka
from a medical perspective,
tukisiagama
how can I bring this to the
ilisarniku
community and make it
luutaangugeaq
accessible?
atuinnaqartitsigiaqarnimi tukisigiarpisani nunalinni
Beaded pasties that I made, and if you don't know what a pasty is,
qaujimangigittukkutta
it's essentially a
sunami
nipple plug.
kamagasuarnittinnik
So I had a friend of mine who wanted
ilannariaqa
some beaded pasties that they could wear to Pride.
atoqamajaunginnik tutseqalausimammata sapangani
It
sanasimayunik
both their gender identity and also their
nalunersigutaummatago amma
two-spiritedness.
arnauninginnu
And so I created these little pasties
angutauniginnulluni
for them.
upalunu
And that was the
inallikitartun
first
ina
commission I ever had for
tammakkirtunut
a pair of beaded pasties. If you're looking for a pair, you can hit me up. I can make you a pair.
takugiartaugunnato atera tutseqartoqarumappat
And I wanted to start to
ammalu
create these so that
taakkuninga
people
sanagumalausimagama
would be able to wear them on their
angiyutialunni
body. And
timimu
so I started drawing your
akaunnaarmatja
hands over there and
sulunguat
feeling the prayers that go into that
amma
beadwork.
attorsugu
I thought,
ippigillugit
about if I am creating
Kanurli
something
taima
and putting these
sanangoma
layers into it, and then that becomes
iluwingoani
on someone's body, and how that connection
timimut
in your
at
body,
tawgajartuni
potentially even on a site of past trauma, and how that might be a way of
ama
healing.
amisunu
On the bottom there,
atuutiqarunnarmata
the
suurluma
Indigenous,
misarnarmu
they're a small
tatamisamayunut
Indigenous burlesque troupe out of
nunaqaqqaarsimayulimaanut
and
Vancouver
they
me
do some really
pigiarsutik
incredible work, and I just wanted to highlight
piuyu
them
tialunni
as
sana
someone who
kamanartuni
could definitely check out
sanaqattarmata
and check them out for
sappangarnik
the work they do. So here I started thinking
uppa
about Kateri Ashton's
isimaksarsiuruti
work. So in her
valleessimajakka
work, she was working with
taakkua
women at the height of
pinasutaviningit
the AIDS crisis in the 80s.
iidisni
And she started to say, how
arsorunartukkuursuni
can we talk about sex or how to
qanurli
communicate about race
uqaussaqarunnarattaa
when we can't even make
kuyannermi
any reference to sex?
uppaluunni
And many in our communities,
amisummaqi
we joke about it. We
nuunalini
joke about spanking or we
ijuqasaqutaqatuinnasuungumata
joke about
tamakkuninga
but many times folks get very uncomfortable talking about
ilangillu
sex or about our bodies. And
tungasungitsiasiungulluti
no, a
tamakkuninga
lot of
kuyanneruyumiksaanu uqaussaqaqia nuunalinni kangusukkami
practice or traditional ways of teaching about the bodies and sexuality.
kisiani ilisaigussaqarmijugu ilisaigussaqaqeqaarta nuunaqaqqaarsimajugu timiumiksaanut
I still have it. It's actually on my keys. I've had it ever since I
taakku
moved in.
uqaussaqajakkasuli
Someone had seen it
kiinnut
at a presentation
atajut
I was doing, and they asked me to come in and teach one
qaiqujaularsimajunga
of
ilisaiqujaulunga
and so I did, and we
sapangalaqineumiksaanut
talked about
asuillaakajusituinnalarsimajunga qanu atatigimmanga tatamakku sapangalaqini timimu unikkaalortunga
teach them, have them push
ilis
on their abdomen and say, do you feel that? Like everyone
amma
do it. You push on your stomach and
attuitiqattarsugi
push the
timinganu
feelers out
sanajanginnik
hard, regardless of what body type you have. I've had a little bit of
uuttuqattiqattalaortavut
estrogen on there, and I can still feel that. And a lot of these youth were thinking that meant they were pregnant.
amisummarimakkuttu isimalaummatanat jinassoqillutik
Six-pack. But I taught them about the words for their bodies.
kisiani
Many folks
timimut
don't talk about
ilisaqutigivallialaumijavut
medical world and will face things like increased rates of being told that they need
suurlu
intervention for things they don't, for sterilization
akaungiliutaqartutun
in our
timikkut
communities. And so I
taimaimmat
wanted to teach them about their own bodies.
ilisigumalausimagajunga
Safe in their own
timiu
bodies.
miksaanu
On the right here is
nunalinni
it was beaded by Candace.
uppataanna
It's connected to traditional
placenta piu nutaqaupuunga ngani itjuarsinguartorpuna
there's some cedar, some berries. And I encourage you to look that up. It's on Facebook.
taakua
This
takuigaarunartassiqarataujakkut
particular project.
taakua
But this is
pinassuartakka
another example of an artist
uuttuutigillugit
using beads to provide these
atornikkut
traditional teachings
sapangarnik
that they can use
piqutinik
within our communities.
nunalinnilu taakua
The Beaded Vulva
akajussiti
workshop kind of
tauvattut
came out of that. And I was trying to get folks to bead with the really small beads at first.
mikiyuutiapinnik sapangarnik atorumalilaursimamijunga
To do it. It's not going to work.
pinassuarusilima pinassuarusiunnunguani piviksaqarama
And I started to develop little workshops.
pigiartilausimajunga ukuninga aaqiksuuvalleerlunga talerpianit aakasauminganittunik atsinguami attortaugunnartullu taakua
So they put their fingers
ippiniajaulutik
and it was every gender was part of that.
nalianutuina angutinu arnanulluunniit
I said, okay, so I want you to take your tongue.
uqallausimajunga
Feel that inside your mouth.
uqarnulli
And I
attorlugu
said, that's exactly the same kind of tissue that is inside of a vagina and also an anus.
Iuqartuqalausimajo
Auntie, why did you do this?
uttuiluagusuurlu uvinner
Be able to feel inside my mouth again. I said, and you will never forget.
taakua piigulausimangitavut
Needs to be well lubricated because
ima
infection if it
qausiqunneqeqammatan arnait
you end up with all kinds of tears in there and it can cause
taimaima taaku unikkaaqasimajarput
and so I'm teaching
tamakkununga
as we do the workshops.
iliseenikut ammalu
which is for
pigiartitsilaursimamijunga uuminga
and so these were all done
ilisaillunga luutaanik aaniarsiutinillu taakua nunatini isimagijausimammata
vulvaception by having all the vulvas in the shape
nivingarsimajut atigiingittunik tauttuliit
workshops, I allow for a lot of
Kay kanilawsimayunga ilisayuni
flexibility for health
tamakuninga
personnel to make them. So you'll see that these ones, they have them kind of
ukua
labeled different ways.
atsigingitunik
But it's
sanayaw
meant to
simayun.
be an example of what a vulva looks
Ututit
like. So I teach them, we have our clitoris bead, and that's always the brightest, shiniest one
atsigingitunik
on the top.
sunakotakakata
We
sa
also have
pangakaw
our
sutalo.
urethra bead, we have a vagina bead, and then we do the vestibule, the labia minora, and the
Aknangot
labia majora.
tautu
And
na
we
amalo
put
asingit
together
sa
and
pangalera
talk
simayun.
about what these mean in our bodies.
Kanokluto
When I'm
ke
doing the
mga
beads, I'll say,
taubat
like,
yun
"Here's a
agnaw yunot.
vestibule," or I'll say, things like that. So I use like that wording, but then I also use the
Dahil na
medical
ukaw
health.
sa
So
tayo may
then,
mat atok si mabaka.
with the medical health professionals, it's a longer
Pila ka
workshop. It's about 3
katakilugit
hours.
ilisay
And I
luta
teach them
luta ni
clitoris
ana
beads,
siuti
gun
nilo ako
punch,
ninok
and
sauso.
and
Da
also
kuning
how
atong
to
niko.
be better advocates for their patients.
Kisiya
When
ni
I taught this
ukalimayu
workshop, not
siya
a
kung
single one of them had
nagsawli
read a
siya
medical
pila ka
health book.
katakatya nagsawli
None of
sa
them knew this
tilo.
before.
Ikayo ko
So
katamenig.
I taught them this history,
Dahil may mat
and
ilisay si mayong
I'm
ata makuamik
continuing to
sa
grow.
ano.
It continues
Ang
to
malusili
be
ka si
something
kanagalit.
that I never thought this would be what I would be doing.
Dahil may tuni ka
But I'm
man
so
to
passionate
kabalawang
about
ito nga.
it, and I'm really excited to see
Kisiya ni
where it
kilanat siya
goes
lakto nga.
next.
Kasi
And
sinarningin ni
how I
tsunami ka man
can
lang may mga
reach
ama.
both youth and other folks in our communities, but then
Asingin
also
nyo
how I can
nakatibot.
be an advocate
Nipiyon ng may
for
mata.
new healthcare
Atong
professionals.
lutik sa
One
pangarnig.
other thing I'll point out with the
Maluto uming ako
Vulva
kamatuin nakto
is
nga.
that in the way that I've designed the project,
Tama kuning nga
you
san
might
san
know
si
what a
maningin ni
vulva
tau
looks like. You
tuningin ni
might
pangnalito
wonder,
ka
is
ma.
that a vulva? But I also made it in a way that is, it could just pass for like a
Kasi si
teardrop or for
Valyas
just
yung
a
nga.
safe piece of beadwork.
Aso
So we
ila
know
sa
that it
pangalaki
might
ka.
be safe for all people to go home with something that looks like a vulva.
Ilangit no kuya gaya
So
sungong
this is
imiyo
how
galot.
we make them. And
Kasi ano sana sukpod.
I'm pretty excited about this.
Kilanat siya po nga. Tama
Goes
kuning nga. Kam
And
kanila ka.
if we have time,
Bibig sa
I'd like
kauta.
to open
Ato
up
sa
for
kunak
questions.
po si.
But if not, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk about this with anyone. So thank you. Hi.
You're wondering.
That is absolutely amazing. It resonated with me so deeply in a way that I don't really understand. I had a very avid beader in our family. She was very important to me. She was my mother's sister. My auntie. She would bead with leather work and things like that. So truly inspiring when she had passed. She gifted me and my mother all of her beadwork. So I
Sa pangaliamin ning tamain anaran no wan
it's
lukimas
something
mang
that I
man.
hold very dear to my heart. So
Pimangarap
thank you
ka.
again for that
Kuya
wonderful
na may.
presentation.
Tan o kasi aksaro to saman.
We just have a quick note in the chat. How can folks
Tema.
reach you and discuss purchasing workshops?
Kanogli ilin ni kawya
I
kanong nakita.
put it directly in the chat. It's looking like maybe I have to go into this one. It's looking like I can only message if I maybe no, it's not letting me message people individually, but what I can do
In mukatin no
I can
titira ko nang
post in
inamamana.
the panelist chat the email address, and then if someone wants to post it for
Paano
me
may
in the
tit
general
ato
in our
tiga
chat,
titira ko
I'd
kupiyon
be
magtasi.
super happy to connect with whomever would like to do a workshop or wants to learn more about it.
Kinatwin na ilisay
Sure.
mayo.
And can you share your social media
Kinakot ka
there as
na
well?
mayo
Oh,
tamatwi
yes,
nga.
and
Nidlong
it's
naman.
I think I'm funny. It's Obeid Gain.
Dapat ako tiga obiday.
I'm not super active on there, but I do post occasionally.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Brittany.
Ayan na
Great
may.
presentation. And
Brittany,
now we go
okatya ka
on
be.
to our final presentation, which
Tingulak
will be
pa mo.
medicine, ancient
Imok
knowledge for
pilugo.
modern healing, presented by
Mamisam na mo.
George,
Imok
Heather
atulugo.
Heinrichs, and
Hendricks
Casey
lo. George lo.
Smith.
O
So
sa kanya tangin. George taba.
is a part of the I'm not gonna like my pronunciation. The Odina turtle clan.
Odina turtle
Mom,
climbing
wife,
out.
auntie,
Anana yo
relative,
uyi
Indigenous
nulera yo yo.
midwife. I
Nisuksuyi sa
postpartum
pangalagayi.
support person, past president
Ang
for
nisartunay
International
kayote.
Lactation Consultant Association,
No jamin
instructor at
mamatiti
Master
katujakatingin
and
ng
a
pilagas may
master
matmas
student
sumilo
at
sila ko
Health
sabing me.
Science Education.
Amma
Heather
ilinaktitu
Hendricks
tumana
is
Heather
a
Hendricks.
Red River Métis registered
Red River
midwife
me ala
at
ngayok.
ECLC with birth
ABC
in Red River,
Elsie ngulo ni.
Winnipeg, and is now
Winnipeg
living and
me.
working in the Northwestern Territories.
Northwestern
Heather's
Territories me.
first
Nung
experience
nakakto.
supporting breastfeeding was when she was 3 years old and
Tuwing
her brother
nukyo
was
kakto
born.
ni.
Heather
Ama
is
magtiti me
president of the
kawiyirok
Midwives
to anya
Association
inuman.
of Northwest Territories,
Nunat sa
Canadian
miuta.
Association of Midwives board member,
Amma
and a
kati
member of the
mayuyo
core
ang
leadership
nisuksiyo
of
no
NCIM.
katujaktikino.
And Casey
Casey
is
lo.
a settler of Irish descent, and she grew up on
Kadlo
the
na
Haslett
inuin
territory
nung nakakakto to kayo nung nanganipiraw si Mayo.
BC, and is currently
BC me.
based in Teotatoka,
Tio
Montreal,
tatoka mi. Manto me kay.
on Kanaki Gahaki territory.
Ganaki
Cassie is
gahay
the staff person
territory.
responsible for social media and other communications at
Manat
NACM.
sa Mayo
She
lagayo.
has a background in
Nakami.
community-driven research and
Al say ng mot.
art
To
and
sa Mayo
traveling
laga ng
arts
mot.
and
Titagayang ng mot.
storytelling.
Unikakto ang ng modlo. Ilinyak sa Mayo.
Hi, Tanshi Kiawao, everyone. I've just started taking midwife classes in January, so I'm gonna try out some of what I've been learning. This will be my first time in public introducing myself in my language. Heather Poitras Heinrichs,
Heather.
Yellowknife, Niwikan, P.
Yellowknife,
Winnipeg, Aubin, La
Mirto.
Rivière Rouge, Ototeo. So my name is Heather Poitras Heinrichs. Poitras is my mother's
Heather
birth name.
Poitras Heinrichs.
Belongs to my father.
Heinrichs.
And I live in
Atataga.
Yellowknife right now, which is
Yellowknife,
Chief
Mirto.
Jackie's territory. And I am from Winnipeg or Red River.
Winnipeg, Mirto, yung Red River.
Generations.
Last
summer, Cassie and staff reached out to me about working on a campaign for Indigenous milk medicine week, which happens in August. This made me so happy. Staff and I have often talked about the need to prioritize this topic, and we'll be training supporting more and more Indigenous households with increasing knowledge in this area. The timing was interesting. I had just come off a campaign advocating against significant reductions in funding for midwifery in the Northwest Territories, and I was in the middle of buying and moving into a new house. I was tired. But I only hesitated for a moment before responding. Yes, I want to do this. We know many of our communities have lower rates of breastfeeding, and we know that this is not because we don't want to breastfeed our babies, but because our communities have been directly targeted by policies developed to undermine this practice. As it turns out, colonialism and capitalism go hand in hand, and they work well together. And stopping breastfeeding practices benefits them both. I'm not going to get into the examples for now, because that's not what I'm here to talk about today. There is a great podcast on the commercial determinants of Indigenous health that explores this concept in great detail, and there's a link in the chat after the presentation. What I want to talk to you about today is the beautiful and positive side of the story, and why Indigenous milk is medicine for our whole communities. You see, Indigenous medicines are preventative, and they are healing. They are bound to our worldviews and have been identified through rigorous observations collected over millennia. We understand medicines and their applications not simply as substances that produce an effect, but as living beings that exist
Inu
within a
luta.
complex network and whose impact is the
Kawi
result of the
magata.
relationships we build with them.
Sunalima
If we do not
umayud
harvest
imanna
in a good
inu
way
katigidlu
the plants and animals
pilagatiangikutta
that provide us
umayunik
medicines,
taruksianiglu
giving thanks,
atutiangikutta
protecting our
koyalwang ngillu
habitat,
talo
nurturing our
sanayitinnun
existence, they will not
huyalilugillu
continue to
tamani
sustain
mata
us.
inakatiamatalo
If we understand
uvattinnut
that human milk is a
ikayoktiutaangittut
nutritious food that helps
immuk
babies grow,
nutakkamu
and we recognize breast and
perusautittiavaumat
chest feeding
inakeuluni
and lactation as powerful medicine that prevents
tamanna
and treats disease
mamamaktittinia
and supports healthy
Aniamut
parenting,
imanna
then we
nuqqangatiti
see that human
yunnarman
milk must be treated
amamaqtukurummut
accordingly. The mother who makes the milk
annaana
must be
taanna
given thanks,
immuliortuq
must be protected,
huyagiyaujarialik
must be nurtured so
ungumayaujarealik
she can continue to provide this powerful medicine.
tamatminga
Indeed,
inulisaamik
if we see babies as medicine
nutaraminu
for our communities,
amamaqtittiniarman
then we see that the whole family
taakkua
must be nurtured.
tautukkutigu
The auntie who
ilagilimaan
cares for the
i
parents
piruq
in the early days and takes
akamagiyaugiarqarput
part in parenting the child as they
inuqatigiyautiarlutik
grow becomes
surussartu
medicine for the
imanna
family,
pittiartautiarlutik
and so we must honor the
asagiyaulutik
medicine of the auntie.
inu
In this way,
lisautibut
we
tamakkua
develop networks of
ipigilugit
care in which in
aaqiumatjutigina
turn communities are
sugiaqarpavut
supported.
tamatta
When we care for others, we
iqayuktigiilluta
become medicine
inuqatittini
and we self-care
ikayuleraangatta
as well. Let's
inulisautinngussugu
circle back
migatta
to where we began with human milk.
tigiaq aimmuk uterpigilugu
I've
ana
heard
anawa
many
immua
things about breast and chest feeding over the years.
amaamang
It is love.
tittiniq
It is the first
tusarsimayavut
teaching a baby
naglinneq
receives. Anishinaabe elder
naglinnermi
Edna Manitowabi says that it is a
aadna
treaty between
manatuabi
mother and child.
uqaqsamayoq
All of
anaanaulugu
these teachings place
innutaraullu
human milk and
taanna
breast or chest feeding in the context of
tungavia
relationship.
amaamagnin
This is because relationships are what
tamakkua
allow us to successfully
inuqatigiinnik
breast or chest feed our babies.
nutaqattini
And breast or chest
amaamaqtittiguttaanang
feeding shows
uvattinnit
us how to build relationships.
qano
It's no
inuqatigiinnermut
accident that the act of
aktuanermut
nursing a baby releases chemicals in our brains
amaaqtattittivalluni
that help us feel love, build
ivattinnun
bonds, and develop
ikayormimma
friendships.
nagligusunnermut nagligiyaunnermut
With this in
ikpigilugin
mind, we see
taakkua
the importance of
isumagilugit
supporting breast chest feeding within our
taakkua
communities as an important
amaamaqtittitauyu
part of the work that we
nunattinni
can do within our communities.
ikayursugiaqartavut
We needn't all be lactation consultants. Much of the work of supporting
amaamaqtittinermut
families to feed their
ikayurtuilluta
babies doesn't
imanna
require special skills.
nipiugiaqarivugut
The breast or chest feeding
inusittiavammu
parent must nurture the
atuttiarman
baby. Their close family, maybe a partner,
taakkualu
sibling,
ilangiit
friend,
inusaartu
must nurture them.
inuqattingillu
And the rest of the community must come
ikayurtigiillutik
together to encircle the family as they learn
ammanunaliit
to breastfeed
iman
and to parent.
ikayurtigiilluti amaamaqtittinermip saagiarpata
Indigenous lactation
ikayursortautiarlu
consultants, or LCs,
nunaqqaqqaartutoqai
understand this context of breast or chest
amaamaqtittinerma
feeding within their
pileriit
community. They can access the knowledge and wisdom
nunamingni
gathered over
qawimammata
millennia. The
tukisiumammata
understanding of community traditions and how
nunaliit
those may have
peqqusinginnik
changed with colonization,
ileqqusituqanginnik
and how our
ammagamamapkunni
traditional practices
qallunaana
are now
tikitaugami
evolving to
qanu
meet the current
asijiutini
environment.
ullumimu akauyumik
Indigenous LCs
qanortuuqutigiilluti
support
aaqivutik
practices on both
sarsiurlutik
clinical and
pilerinayarmata
perspectives.
timimu
The everyday work that Indigenous
isumamu
LCs
tarnermullu
do seeks to
aaqiumatjutiksaning
build and strengthen relationships that protect and nurture the breast or
inuqatigiittiarnermun
chest feeding parent.
imannaqanigiikluni
We can create
angayuqqaangulluni
environments where
namminikulu
parents can see and
ivallugu
learn about breast and
amaamaqtillugu
chest feeding, so they are prepared to feed the baby
naglingummut
on their own,
atavoq
feed their own baby. They're not doing it on their own.
taimalik
And when feeding a baby becomes more challenging,
amaamaqtittilluni
we can help with
nutaqamik
clinical expertise and knowledge, some of it gathered over
ikayurunnarpagut
millennia, and some of it more recently borrowed from Western approaches.
amma ilangit qalluna
And this is where I'm going to
ilsaijuttingin
hand off to
ilaullugit
Steph to continue this lovely
staff
conversation.
oqausseriarmagu
Thank you.
ilanga qayannami
You have to unmute yourself, Stephanie.
Yes, thank you. I have a story about when these videos
unikkaarumagama
were made in contact, when I was
takka
contacted about the videos too.
ajliorutini
My
pileriartillugit
mother had recently passed, and I had accepted the offer admission to go for my master's. And Cassie
alunniarutimnuut
And the moms that are going to be in the video will be sharing. It was a home care house at the birthing center. And it was lovely revisiting the moms that are going to be in the video today. It was a nice way to end the time there.
Teikani inusernok nakalaktilugu kingutlakpaami katamakhatigilu taimanna kuviani lawpok nutarama aipa
La Leche League Canada. It's a
La Leche League Canada mi
peer-to-peer
pilirikhattalilawpunga
support.
amaamaktitiyuni ikayokhatigilluni arnauqatittini anaanani
My first child successfully. Probably should have had more
nutara
help, mind you.
sivullerpa anuilaungilaq.
But what I loved about La Leche League and how they approached
Isiani
parenting was
unnaquviagilaqtaqa
natural and instinctual way of
Inuutisautiarunnu ipigusuttailini atungillugu aanniarniarnertutautungillugu ernianneq tamanna atutuinnarlugu aksualu quvianalaupoq kappianaqani inuusiulluni inuusilimaam nutarattaaqutta inuusilimaamulli tapa angayuqqaangornialertugut
there's such a pressure on families to have these
Illagit
through the night, and if you're early and if babies don't sleep through the night, then
nutaqqat unnuakkussininnarpangippata
that's difficult. But Creator
nutara
made our infants to wake up
isumakkiunartaugu
often at night.
Kisiani unnuakku iqqummaqattariaqamata inuusaaviniin sanayiittaa taimanna sanasimayangin anerterininga pillugu
Until about a year.
ukiut muataussermut ukiortaalauratik imanna unnuakki iqqummaqtarajummata amaamaktittinertamanna atorneriluarpaa
Makes our milk prolactin its highest at night.
unnukkullu tamanna immukput amaamaktauniartoq piunerpaangummaguor taqaassorluni sinilluni
The first 2 or 3 days, it's actually a good thing because they're working with that prolactin to bring
taimanna
the milk.
pileriqatigillutik timivullu unnuarlumanna sininneq iqqummarvialu
Lactation isn't taught in medical
amaamaktittineq
schools. It isn't taught in
ilinniaqutigiyavanngimman silertorsarvinni
midwifery schools. Except for
iluarsayileriunin
birthing center. Our
nanituinna
students got a month of leave, hopefully.
ernisipsiivinniluunniin
Hopefully they got the whole month. But it's not taught. And if it's
ilinniaqutaasimanngimmat ilinniaqassaunarnilu ilinniaqutitaqanngimmat
I'm taking my master's program is in health science education.
taima
And there's one
ilinniaqpalliagama
lecture all about
iluusileqanermu annaamanneqarmut aanniarta
how students in
ileqanermut
class will say, well, is it on the test? Because then I'll
nernaikkutartaaqassullungaa
remember. So if it's not
titaarpiuguma ilinniartitamni
it's not going
imanna
to be the test and I
kiuppat
can ignore it. So if it's not taught in med schools, nursing schools, midwifery schools, they learn that it's not that important.
ilinniarsamangikkuti ilinniarviu iluani pimmeriutittingimmata atorsimayatoqattini pimmerialorni
Go to a lot of communities in Canada.
nunnalinni kanatami upaksimagama unortunit qayimayaqa tukisittinnasuklugu ilinniartiginasuarlugillu nunnaliin
And we forget
puiguqattaqatta
because of the government interference
gavamakkut aulattinasuluarningi pillugit
we were pushed to not breastfeed and then it became not important.
Amaamaktitteqattaqoyaunniilorsimagatta tungassutitaujunniarluta
We're supposed to nurse our children for a long time. The baby,
akkunialuk
the
amaamaktillugit
toddlers,
inuusaa
when they're done. Some people are done earlier than others, and that's okay.
ilangilli nuqqarsaalisu ilangin amungakkanner amaamagunnarluti
When
anaanaminni
we nurse our children for a long time, it's like we
amaamaktittigaangatta
are their
nutaqattinnik akuni
spiritual battery. Because they have
soorlu
to reconnect with us when they are sad.
uvattinnu utertalusugummata iluittuoqattigiler kaaleruting amaamagumallerutik imeriullerutik ilinnut uterniartut
To interact and protect each other.
nutara amma anaananga angayuqqaanga taimanna katimayareeqarmata
Parents get. where we are able
Amamak
to nurse our babies. And it's vitally important for our mental
Himmangaluman.
wellness. There's studies out there that show when
Kawisaktas mayu Amesumata. Amamak
breastfeed, their chances of getting postpartum depression actually go down.
Amamak titiguti imingnin. Ang nisaktuto ko vesungin niya rumitikitawangituli. Niksawyon.
Minutes of sleep at night.
Sinitiang na saulo tiglo
I worked with a lot of
unukod.
people who said that they wanted to get through the first little bit of nursing, probably
Ilangin
2
o
weeks, and then they
kasamamata
wanted to pump,
2
so their
weeks
partner can
ko.
nurse the baby at night, but then out goes their milk supply because they're not nursing at night anymore.
Unna ko
It's
amamak
great to have
titi
a
yun
parent who has
nirangami.
the other parent who's not nursing
Amamak
involved.
titi nga no katuin na sunguman.
A bottle isn't the only way to show love. That skin-to-skin
Amamaw
contact
timig.
is so
Atolo
important
ni naglinito ang
everybody
man.
in that family.
Uvining aktualo ni
It
naglinito
calms
ba.
us, it
Sangilangon mat.
unites us, it
Katitiang
makes us
naman.
feel loved.
Ipigusutiang naman. Nagligiyaw ng maiping naman.
The intergenerational trauma that so many of us
Taba akso ko
are still
maluta
working
ino
through.
sumayuin na gata
There's studies that
atoksuta.
show that successful
Kausang
breastfeeding
nita
and chest feeding
takwa
can
ama
help us
magtitibuta.
overcome intergenerational trauma.
Tomatuming
How
anya
that
tinik
works
tao
is when
mamitu na kata ama
somebody else is holding the
magtitinikod.
baby, the mom will start whispering, or the nursing parent will start whispering,
Solo.
"That's my baby."
Iman na ilaw kapan una nutaka ka ama
When
magumakailaw
that
o.
person understands that they're being listened to,
Nalaktaw ga nang minakawigang aming.
strength, I'm hungry. Can you get me a sandwich while I'm
Kakama.
nursing? Or can you get me some water?
Naganaktan niya kahit yung nakpinga.
And when they see that they are supported,
Ikayok daw naman ni Ujagalirang aming.
they feel better about themselves. And they're
Iming
able
ning
to
lakawagin
nurture
naksaw mata.
that infant and toddler and
Ama
child
magtitiluti sayliluti kamatyang ng sawot. Way manakangin
and the
naming.
other parent, they get that too with that skin to skin
Ama
contact.
na atatangat tao. Teman na tamani ko
When
ni
I work with
ipigi kami o.
a mom and dad,
Teman
I
na
teach them both.
ananalo at atalo tamamig ilinyak
It moderates the
titakka.
temperature, it decreases or it moderates
Akay
the
majuti
glucose
makalo
levels. It's the best thing.
Basuni nga
when the
ama.
baby's cold.
Kiyuga nga minuta ka.
A lot of times there will be, I had referrals where
Ilang yung kiyuga
babies
nga
weren't
minuta
gaining
ka
weight,
lahat.
but their diapers were
Ama.
fantastic. It's because the babies were
Kaya
full,
yuptuga
and
luan.
they just
Iman na
needed
ko'y
to be held
tipalyang
sleeping a
itilugit.
little longer throughout the day.
Kaya wala po iman na
Like Heather said,
nutak tigumiak tao ng
when
ikatalawa mo.
the
Iwayaw ng
nursing
ikatalawa mo. Tayo man na.
is able to nurse
Pero
for
alay
like
yun.
3 to 6 months,
O
it
kumay
dramatically can decrease their
tunay
chances of
liyon.
getting
O kumay
gestational
lituin
diabetes.
naktot.
And it
Ilang
always
idlo.
makes me livid. And I
Ilang
use that word
ipiguso.
appropriately. It makes me livid
Aw
when I
ming
go
iman na
to
ubining may aktuas
diabetes
mangilwak daw
conferences
nuta
and
kalat.
nobody talks about
Ilang
that except me and the chat.
O kao sa kayawang ngilwak mata kanamay
Why
nausingin no.
aren't we
Pero
teaching
nigin
that
no.
anymore?
Aktuin nga. O kao sa
Our
kanyang
parents,
sakay yakat
they
tabol.
need to choose to breastfeed. They should never be guilty.
Ana nagiyaw ama magtitiyo mayo. Ama magtitilo. Isumasugaya ka po. Maligag ko. Ato agad ko lo. No ka nga titaw na sa kaya kang itod. Ama o kao sa katiyak lago. Ama magtitino kano. Atong nga. Ino katitinot. Tauto tinolo. Ikayong suinitinol. Ano yung inasayo ni kuyasong nasanay ananak takarlo ni ama magtiti. Breast cancer mo lo ibiyang mo cancer mo no kang titinok sauman ama magtitinak. Ama magtiti yui aksualo. Ikayui ming matataw timiming nun no takaming niglo. Kinaw yung niglo atulongin na saulo ni.
Not everybody's able to.
Tamang may ama magtiti yun nang mata imingnin. Ibiyang yung mingnin ang nai tamang ming. Ilangit kisiyane nutakakta na ubining aktualo naglinang may ipigosuktok ama magkuni ilinid naglinang migtao taba nakakapok ikayo po ananang ano nutakamullo ilagay nullo
Oddly, 2 clients over a Christmas
Marco,
holiday. They both
kuviasi
put
beauty
breast
logo.
milk into their partner's ears at night because they were coming down with ear infections, and the men were like, "Ew, I don't want them to come down here." They woke up and the ear infections were gone.
Ngit.
And they said, "See, I didn't
Akaw
need to
yun
go
niya
there."
mata.
I don't know if they were fessed up, but I love that
Ano
story.
kaya? Tukisilaw ng itaka.
So talking about milk medicine is
Imong ming
here
inuso sa kang na ananaw
because it's
imaning.
important and it needs to be prioritized again.
Si budliw ti tawlo na iman na
The
pimakaw ti
women
tawlo
that
na
are going to be in this
piyakialig.
video
Adjingwan
that
itawtong niya
Cassie
si taba.
beautifully put together,
Kasi usan na
look
sa
at
atang
their
actual
eyes when they're
period.
talking.
Iying
Look at
itawtong
their
niya
body
pasiog.
language. It is.
Timingin lo alan ng
I cried.
itakulusiog.
Granted, I was
Actually,
having memories too.
piyugilok taka.
It's beautiful. It's as beautiful
Piyu
as
yung
birth.
makiuman.
We have gynecologists and obstetricians, to help us
Ang nalaga
when
yunik.
breastfeeding or when labor and delivery
Lugta
are a little
kawata.
wonky.
Yung
We
isuksuti
have
luit.
lactation
Ilaw
consultants and
yut.
other
Ama
breastfeeding
magtiti
support
mayon na kaw
people
yung maya kawata.
to help
Ama makwa
when
ikayok
breastfeeding
yun.
feels a little wonky. Everybody who's working in maternal child care should have at least a 20-hour course.
Solo.
Updated yearly as lactation
So sila
consultants.
kayo
We
liman,
have
ni
their right
suktu
to
kayo
exam
liman,
every
ama
5
magtiti
years,
na may tao.
or we have to
Iman na
have
ilinya
a
si maluti
75
piya kako
educational
mata.
credits in certain topics
Ilita kayo lo
for
nilo.
5
Taman
years.
na ama
So we are
magtiti na
constantly
kim makayo ni nga ilinya
if
si
I don't know more
maguni.
about breastfeeding this year than I did last year, I personally feel like I have failed. And I
Isa
have
ne.
exam this year. Yay me.
Man ama magtiti na may ilinya palyalong. Uban nita magtubiniw ka katakalwak
Like I
nga.
said, we can't be guilting people and forcing people into breastfeeding or chest feeding if that's not
Ano
what they
ti
want to.
ama magtiti ko ilo ni
Everybody
pimang
needs
ito ni
that
ayaw tiyo kan
support.
ngiti
That
wood.
support that people get
Kisiani
after
ama
they have
magtiti
babies,
mayu
that
ikayong
in itself
takatiyarlo ni
helps
ikayok
reduce
daw tiyarlo ni
postpartum
tao.
depression.
Kung
There's a
nga
great
kakti
TED
daw
talk
tiyarlo ni piya
by
kaya
Sandra
kakibok.
Miracle on
Sandra
YouTube
Miracle
from
ti
Toronto,
sa mama
and she
Toronto
talks about
mi.
how it's not postpartum depression, it's that
Yung
we're
nisaglo
building
na
a
kuviyas
postpartum
yung inyong
support
ito.
for our families. And
Tayaw ya kanila. Ikayok ta
I've had 2
kangin na
really bad cases
inutu
of postpartum
jujilong na
depression
taba.
because
Kuviyas
I
yung
felt
inyo
isolated
lisong
and completely
man.
alone.
Inutulo ako ni kuviyas yung
The
niyang
last one,
man.
the last
Tingulak
baby, I
pa.
didn't have anything, which was
Tingulak
wonderful
pa
because
me.
I had
Nutaka
the
ka.
support.
Inutu tiyan
So I
magilaw
want to
ma.
leave you with
Kimagumalaga
love,
kili. Nagling na
and
makimabigilugit.
because if breastfeeding went well for
Ama
everybody,
kanwisaw
there
na
would be
may.
lactation consultants.
Ama magtitiwi na guta. Ama
We
magtitiwi
can
na
all
kawai
get
maya
through this
kayang
together. We're here
ipagod.
to share our knowledge. We are all
Kawai
here to
maya
share
bod.
our knowledge. That's why we're in this conference.
Atutya ko natud. Tunay tutiya kakin
I say
ilino
yeah,
kimay baka.
and I will be turning the time over to Cassie.
Kasi muli tunay repakataman na katiman na pianikama.
Hi, thank you so much, Steph and Heather.
Kaya na may staff amang Heather.
As the experts, they've said
Ako
really
kawai
what's,
mayugamik.
I think, meaningful and important about
Ukaw
milk
sa
medicine and
mata.
its
Imok
transformative power. And I always
inyo
love what
litaw
she
sa nga
goes
pilogo.
to help amplify some of that knowledge,
Kamat ko
amplify
kawai
some of those messages,
mayangit.
these
Ukaw sa
voices,
kaluwin
and
nito
to be
kokto
able
na
to
saulo
get
ta
to the birthing
tukisiyaw
center
tinaswak.
and visit
Ota.
Steph on
Yung nisog
station
bilay
and
nulo
speak
ilaliw
with some of
tiluwin ama
the
magtitinong
parents
ikayong
that she
niapilogo.
had supported as a lactation consultant.
Ama
And
magtitinong
I
may
think a
kawai
big
mayulo
takeaway
ni
from
ikayok
this
tiulo
is
ni.
that this
Iminig li kawai sumayo.
knowledge
Iman na
and
kawai
this
manak.
understanding of milk
Tukisiyaw
as
manak.
medicine really just needs
Imok
to
inulis
get
out
out there
itiyabaw man.
more.
Agtuan nga na nanganot iba
And
nga
as part of
naglimnot
that,
na
we created
ipigilogo.
a milk medicine
Imong
page
ming
on the
inulis out
NCIM
mig
website
unik ka
and are
kanagluta
doing a social media
kumatis mayon
campaign
tita
with
katinot
all
sakit tiga
interviews
kalagtuod.
and videos that
Takayaw
we've
tilimar
collected.
kumaktis
So
mayabot.
I'll just show you that
Ila
now.
tayo may tumi ila kapat akaw yun. Tako yun
Sorry,
naktis
and of
ko
course I
ilangin.
have a million tabs open. Okay. So here's the NCIM website, and as you can
Vale.
see, there's a new milk
Tita
medicine
kakotita.
tab, so this is not something that something that is gonna remain at the forefront, we hope.
Uvane
Because
kinwagon ng nektay.
talking about Indigenous midwifery without talking about milk medicine, there's a big chunk missing.
Nakakatutukay.
So,
Ang nisusining
on the
niyo kasi
page,
lugar mamaktintin na
we
ilaw
talk a
ng
bit
ipat.
about some of the ways
Ilakulo
that milk
aktok.
medicine.
Imok inulisaw
There's
tiutidlugo.
a section on
Unikata kaming
our
man.
indigenous lactation
Kikut.
consultants.
Ama
Just like
magtitin ng
Indigenous
mukhaw yung
midwives,
mayugat.
Indigenous
Nakakatutukay.
lactation consultants have unique expertise in lactation
Hoy
and breastfeeding
manakaktok.
support, but they
Ikayok tiyo
are
yun
also
naktunig. Ama
aunties
magtitin
and
ng
members of their
molo.
communities, and so they bring their
Aking
clinical
medyo tayo yun
expertise
naktunig.
alongside
Ikayok ti.
cultural safety and cultural competency.
Kakosikot.
And here you can watch a video step
Nakakatutukay.
explaining some
Ilok
of
ko
what that
singit
looks
tigod.
like.
Awla luwid.
There are
Aking
some
manasutigin na sa
initial
luwid.
links and resources for
Tema at
people
tingwak
that
takaw
work
rebok
with
takayaw tinik
people,
at
newborns,
singinik.
families who
Ilagi.
might need or want to upgrade their knowledge of lactation and
Ilinya
how to
kan
better
na
support
kumayo ama
families with
magtitinamot.
lactation.
Kami ko akong
And we're
naktangin.
hoping that this will
Takayaw
really
tikot.
reinforce the kind of amazing partnership that can happen
Ama
between
pila
Indigenous
katigitiang
midwives,
na
Indigenous
patamaning.
lactation consultants,
Ama
and they combine
magtitiniw
their
miksano
expertise
kayo
to
mayigiyabod.
support
Pilangin
First
ni.
Nations, Métis, and Inuit families.
Ano nakakakito kaulote.
And
Ikayok
then
titakaw
down
tiyaman.
here is the campaign. So
Tabali
it
ama
is
magtitinang
primarily
mapioningin no nalo na
so
yaw
I
taw na
encourage
sigdok
everybody
tayo
to
yok.
follow us
Ama
on
magtitinang
TikTok and
inulisaw tiyo
Instagram
yok.
at NCI Midwives. That's where all the videos are going to be posted.
Takwa takayaw
Over the
tili
coming
mata
weeks,
panini
we'll be
mata.
releasing new ones weekly.
Nadang
There's a
ninagwaglo
lot
tipi
of
yung
knowledge
naktay.
to share. There are a lot of stories to share. So I hope that you
Unika
follow along
kakuro
with us
yakad
on
lo
social
ni
media. And
Mingman.
in fact, the first one of stuff is up on our brand new TikTok account. It's the first
Taba
ever video that we
kiungda
posted.
pa.
So please go check it out.
Ubunga kawiya akong nakpay. Midwives.
But we've also included a
Every.
bit more information. I'm going to show you this video that has some of the highlights from some of the videos, the interview videos that we captured in a second. But I also just want folks to know that you can also learn more about participated and let their time and their voice and their experience and their expertise to the project. So there's more information about stuff here, and then we get to meet the parents and the mothers that participated. So there's Jess, Kylie, Becky,
Alihido.
and Charlie. And I'll
Charlie
let you go through and introduce yourselves to them via the webpage.
Gina
But
Mount
since we're running out of time, I just want to show you this video to get a sense of what we kind of got into.
Indigenous milk medicine is powerful. The milk that I produce as a mother is definitely medicine.
Ananaw
But it changes constantly.
Inulisaw tiyo mat.
What he needs. And I think it's just the most beautiful thing ever.
Aking umamaw.
Can help with skin issues and
Ikayoktok. Ubinakatsa ng mod. Ama. Ane nakatayli ng mod. Sukakalwag na modlo. Timi mod. Takwalimat. Ikayok palayayot. Imok. Ane siyutiyo mat. Nutakamot upaluni. Ikayoktok. Asingigot. Amisunik. Amma ubinitsya kakotawluni. Khoyali bunga nirwakon nakama amamatitinami uvanit tamanna inulisaw tiyungmat ananaw yunuttaw diabetes katuin nakakatunulu takay tuwak anigutamat ananaw yu anasiw tiyulu nirtitaw siw timingit nutakapiga ubaninirimmat amamanikot sanginiyulunitana ubanut amma kamanaktok amma kaitaw simayok tana sanajitinut amma nikatsiyavakarnikut ikayoktok
pitoqatigiitsiarnikkut ullulamaaq ikajortoq amaamattiserneq sanajaviniapinni nutaqammut ikajorutaummat amaamattitsigiaq neritsiareaq ippiniatsiareaq apiqqutiksaqartoqarpaat I think also apiqqutaarsuungullunilo to ask the question ammalo apiqqutaqasuungummata nallinermik anaanaujullu nutaqai iliniarsutik uqaqatigiinningagut illamini ikajorsijaulluti nunaqaqqaarsimayut nutaanna taimama pimmarialugu tusaumaqatigiitsiareaqarne annalu qavisarniku qavisisimammatu nutaqait quviasunisaumamata amaamattitaujun nallinermilu qavinersaulluti upperusunnamillu amma nallineriakkanami ammalu pitoqatigiitsianammi anaananganut ilanginnullu nalligijaugumaningindillu nallunaikutaulluni tamanna atoqeqaqatigu inuqatigiitsiarnikku neriqatigiinneq amma taimaittoq tamanna amaamattitsinninga nutaqarni nunaqaqqaarsimayut aulatsinerimau nerikkainermik tamanna taakkuninga arsaatagunnangittut nunaqaqqaasnikuit amaamattisigunnarnamu piyunnautinginnik asinginnimaligaliugaluaq tamakkuninginoqqarutinut kisiani tuniyauvalauqatta neqimitsaanut amaamautinmunlu immunut aturtutsanik amma qanu ikajornerigalertanginnik piaqarnut taimaimmat aulatsigunnaqeqartugu qanunerisiungunittinnik amma tamakkuassuqusi peqertsatsiaqullugi qanuingillutti timingit ammalu qanuittuni immunni nerikkaimangaarmi uippigusugialit ataakku asaqqitaussimayu uvatnin tuniyaussimayut atanittinnit nunaqaqqaarsimayut uqalimaqattaqassi atsassinnut ilassinnulu asitinertukuortillutit uqauturtaugiaqangittuti qanuq piyutsaumangaarpit itsivarkainnareaqaqatsi qauligiarlusi qanuiluortuqalermangaat ammalu atuinnaqarunnarmangaarpit immutsiavannik anaanalluti ataaterluti like suurlul ammalu qanuq lingagiaqarningittu timingit ikajortigilaortanni isimalertitaulaurama qanuiluorunnarninnik tamannaquviagiyaqa atulangallugulu taakku katillugi piqorsarninganu suqussiu amaamattitauluni akaunaarmata ammalu inuusitsiavaqo nguurutaugunnarsutik ammalu ikajorsuti piqorsartunu nutaqarnut pirutsiaqullugi ikajorsijauluyuti nunaqaqqaarsimayut irnisuksiiningatigut piyaqerpungali Evelyn kinatuinerluni apaqutiksarpaa piyaqermataana Wow, absolutely amazing wow information.
uqaussisitusaqaminartualoqataaqut iqqaumatsialangavugut iqqaiqattakainnaqungala uqalimajoqartillugu tapanaipusi kamanarpusi quyanlamimmaqialuk tamatsi nuq taimalita amusinialerivugut atermik taanakingullapaaq amulangayavut
the book Half Breed by Maria Campbell and
Maria Campbell uqalimaaliavninga amusigutaulangajaq
the raffle draw.
piaqeerutta amusigiirutta matulangasiyugut
Extra special prize for us, and let's see who gets to
atti saalatsituqalaumili uitsaatitaugululli ammalortoq
Right, so number 4 Number
Number 4,
Kelsey
Kelsey Leonard,
Alright,
Sala Chapo.
congratulations, Kelsey. And if you are in
Hoyan
the,
namig, Sala
auditorium, you
Chakotit.
could just say hello in the chat.
Hello to
What group
inalagat.
was at your watch party? Could you kindly let us know so that we can connect with Kelsey? Thanks so
Kelsey.
much. Back to you, Evelyn.
Pito katigi yung nakotigo.
Okay, so now we are going to close
Biyak.
our forum.
No kalangalagata.
Floor over to Maria Campbell.
Maria Campbell matuni si baka o kalimautik.
And we'll be closing our forum.
No kasigata. Ulumi mo. Asiyo tuwin nakataka o kalimalangayak. Oof.
Thank you. That was
Hoyan namig,
pretty
nakomig. O kausi siyang niyo katang masa.
You have to unmute yourself, Maria.
Maria, tusaksangin nabit. Tusaksangin nabit.
There's so many buttons.
Tema. Amisiwalo ni nakasigiya kakama.
Anyway, that was pretty emotional listening to that.
Ipinelo alikay nakamakupyo bungalat.
Told you a little bit of a story.
Unikala wala to nga ilan nang inibigyan tilota. Uigot siya nakama.
About learning to latch.
Ilin niya ni
I
umitsano.
remembered it from my own.
Ikaw magalwa to nga la atok si mayanik. Uigot si man nakaki ako niyalog. Ananama ilin niya ako sigilaw si mayangin.
See her in the summer. And I remember walking into the tent.
Ikaw mayong apisugaya tupinganon.
The old ladies were sitting around.
Inay ningiyo itsibati lugo sila may.
In the summer they would
Upalaw si magamaaw yaw ti lugo tupi sanayani.
and they would meet and
Katitatsu titaw bani. Dahil matsay nakatakatik kata.
all of us little girls who
Tamanda tamata.
would be allowed to
Agnaw yugo.
we were all playing outside.
Niversyang yugo. Lo sila mipingwa palaw kata.
Of the tent and the blankets that were on
Tu
the
permiti
floor.
lugit ilabot.
She had all of her
Kipinilo atok palaw mata. Alay.
or well, she was giving a lesson.
Ilisay law sa mayutay na agnak. Ningiyo.
Younger midwives
Unikalaw sa
what they were
mayok.
supposed to do.
Makunasanod.
And
Irnisitsiyinyo. Ikaw mayo nga. Ukalimati lugit. Baski kimi ukaw sa kaktilugit.
Love medicine is what it really tracks.
Sunaw pa. Inulisaw tinik.
That was for
Tamang kwapi makelo tilaw sa mayabot.
to teach our babies and
Ilisay gayak. Nutakak tinik.
and just
Amma,
girl thinking of my
dahil
mother
na
and all the times
panayapik.
I saw her sitting up at night.
Itsiva tutakulaw sa mayaka. Sila may.
Baby up and I'd be in bed because we slept all in one room. We only had two.
Sinipalaw kata ilo ako sa mitapanat siya na amisiutsuta.
The baby and
Dahil na ang na amamatitsyo takon na palaw taka.
we couldn't be a part of that little circle.
Mameto nga ilagun na law sa mga nama.
Thinking about my
Isumagilito ako. Inusa kasi mayaka.
how important it
Ang
was.
makanok lupi makiulang mga
Child,
makutsuta sa kusiluta. Sa kusiutiluta.
the course of my own life.
Isumanok. Isumakko sa asit sa kutigi si mayaka.
Known about skin love.
How yi manila ako manali ng may.
And even today,
Ala ulumi.
I work with a lot of students.
Pinasukata kasong kami ilisak taw yunik. Ilani ko how yi manaso magkutuit. Kinuningin na linang may. Ubago tamakuninga ikayo kaya kaktugot. Tamakko kaya taw ni ko ipiyo atok lugit. Tatsimeng okaw sa kakamatuin nakatakto nga. Mamaya na ipinyalo na kaw gama.
I'll be snorting all the way through my prayer.
Tutsela ko ma. Hupiyot ak. Kakilito na lang alak ko nga.
A gathering, but we had our first
Kata ko yale nga.
our second midwifery meeting.
Tulak tangan ni katimak tuwang nakakata Canada may.
Trying to
start a midwifery.
Sulipigiartitsigasuagatta anaanatsianguyugut ernisutiinermik silatsorsappimmi taaku oqaaseriamaqataartakka ilitsinut
You know, talking to a whole lot of people and just
amisualuit
place do we want and how do we want to
qanuittunik takuyumammata
and what's important.
ikajortaugiksani tamakkununga ammalu tamakkua pimmariummata
Yeah, I'm really grateful. I'm grateful.
Really
I've known
vittuaqunga
so many midwives in my life.
katisimagama amisualunni ernisutiisini
There isn't a day goes by that I don't
ullumi
feel for that.
anigorivu ikajortaugatta atanittinnut
So I'm going to do the prayer in my
taimatutsiasivunga noqqareerusimi allatitut tukisiataanginnakku mamianaugalooq Inuktitut tuinnaqama taakkuali inuktit qallunaatitoqasukkaluarlugilluuniipi akaungitut kuiku uqalimalangagama
to our first grandmother
sivullapaama anaanatsiangujugut
and to our 4 grandfathers that look after
ana ataatatsiulluqqujalibavut
and
amma
and to our creator or our great mystery.
atanivut qujalibavut
So that's who I speak to.
taakkununga taka uqalimasiunguvunga
Think about all the babies that are on their
niutaqaapiillu tamarmi iqqaumalugit
I have a painting of my granny and I always think
ana
about her when I
anaanatsiama atsinguangani
because there's a picture
amiaqsimayumi pisimavunga
snow like this.
silami nangirtoq ukiumi
And we used to ask her, no, come,
aperisuura
what are you looking for?
aperilaursimajaqa sunamiqinermangaat ulatuinalaursimaja qaujikasutuinnaqunga
And for
ullumi
some reason she was always right. She'd say it's coming.
taimangalimaatuinla silamuoqtuviniulunu ullaakut suulissuuq
My baby's coming today, or else it's not coming. I can't hear it.
qaujimasuunguluniloqangaernigiaqalermangaarmi
I'm thinking about that right
tainna
now.
isimagi qaujaqa isimagijaqa ullumi
Some of you are going to have to rush out to them and
ammalu tuaviriaqasuut
those in mind, those
iqqaumaniaqqugut
little midwives that aren't born yet.
mi ernisufsiijinik tutsiasivunga
Iko kenenaskum tane miassikum matsun kapea wihiak. Kenenaskum no keksko ka pegi sihtatsik mama ka mama wapitsik. Kano ematsik kwetsim tan timage ematsik. Iko kemiasni ikat matuske on katutaki. Auminan kauyaski kistamina. Kenenaskum tan kiumaksewatsun katahkunaman. Kiaka snamauja ka piksquesta mauja awassa kan nipavista mawatsekista. Iko kemiassa kan maakopakitskaman uitsehenannista naanekotoa kakitskamak. Joasim snana kemiassa koma meskanau kausihta mawajako. Hawina nohkom nottagoatajuhkan kistaminen naskum tan kapivitap matsekoke kapekisihtaatsekeka. Wetsem nkapikskoista mawatsek. Kawitsi hiakahkia sokemuin katahkunamak seoatsuin sagituen. Emiaasek meskanau kausihta mawaakuk. Soasem snawa kussemnawa kahkiutsapana. Witsi hinan jokuan matoskiwen katuttamaa. Ja kuukek kanuemek kuikuke. Miasni komakatutaki. Hauminen mussomakaneva piekkistoaminen kenenaskum nao. Nestawe miassiku takapipihtuvatai kenenaskum kahkia. Aunuhtawi pektimagimnan. Kanuemnan. Vitsi henanumak kapmuhtea. Kakaskihtaa keukakahkia ketahunamaa. Eko kamskamaa kitakastaa. Kani pavistamawa kukukek. Soasum snanak. Au, kilnaskum. Hai. Mercy. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, for your beautiful closing of our
Matursinamut noqqaraarnamullu
do in our community.
Hoyalibugot pinasuttuinaugatsi.
In their life cycle transitions.
Asitiivaliagasuttilluta inuusittinik
We
akaunersamuk.
want to thank our
Hoyaligumabugut
hosts and all our participants who
ilaujalimanik
forum a success.
uvattinut. Kasisitsiatikkasiutamanakatimanak.
To improve the health and well-being of our
Hoyanami aaqigiaqasuaqatta qanuitsiaqasuarnikut
our Indigenous
ilaulauratsi hoyalibugut ammalununaqaqqaarsimayu ileqqusingani tausiaqattautilaauratsi
your communities to give families the
ammalu utiqumaarlusi nunatsinniut ikajaruarlusi
and better health
uppirusoqatigiippallianermissanagatta
NACM wants to continue to support
naakam kanatami irnasutiinjikkussuut kasusinginnaaqumaput
what topics you'd like to
isimagijatsini ippukullutik
please fill out our survey. Robin
qawisaqutiit apiqqutiit tatatilangavassi
Watch party hosts, remember to share about your event.
iqqaamalusilutaarsiaqattautigiaqarnisinnik
Enjoy our virtual grab bag. It is rich with information and
ammalu atuinnaqaqipugut puurnik tukisigiarpissani pitalinnik
We look forward to seeing you at the gathering again soon.
takulaqatakkuqatigiilaaqipagu katimaqsualermikut taqoyannamik
Thank you all for joining us.
nakormiitamatsi
Coming to you from Opaskwayak Cree Nation in Manitoba.
kuinuisakkunniingaarpunga
Thank you all for coming.
nakormiitamatsi qaigatsi